approach the board on an item not on the agenda? Seeing no one, I'll close that portion. Bring it back to item B, approval of the minutes of the ABR for July 12th, 2010.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. First by Park, second by Clay. Anything before item 1? Item 1?
Item on the minutes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're just reading minutes.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Item 2? Item 3? Item 4? I guess that was a good one. Okay. All those in favor of the minutes as reviewed say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'll abstain. So we go on to the consent calendar for July 12, 2010. Motion to open those minutes. First by Clay, second by Keith.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that's for the consent for last Monday, July 19th.
Mm-hmm.
And item A, 29 North Milpas, is continued indefinitely for the lighting and was given final approval as submitted of landscaping.
Mm-hmm.
Item B, 3940 State Street, final approval with conditions. Item C, 1924 Emerson Avenue, final approval as noted.
Mm-hmm.
Item D, 402 South Hope, was postponed 2 weeks at the applicant's request. Item E, 3222 State Street, final approval as noted.
Mm-hmm.
Item F, 900 Calle de los Amigos, final approval as submitted of landscaping. Items reviewed by Clay Arell.
Great. All those in favor of the minutes are reviewed say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. So then we'd go on to consent calendar for July 26th. Today? Yeah, first by motion to open those minutes.
I'll make that motion.
First by Paul, second by Clay.
Yes, Mr. Chair, consent calendar for today, Monday, July 26th. Item A, 1298 Las Positas Road, approval as noted of review after final. Item B, 5 South Nopal, approved as noted of review after final. Item C, 1030 Cacique Street, continued indefinitely to consent. Item D, 431 Vista de la Playa, continued indefinitely to the staff hearing officer and to return to consent. Items on consent review by Clay Arell and Chris Gilliland.
Great. Thank you. All those in favor of the minutes as reviewed say aye. Aye. And that concludes item C. Item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items and appeals.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a couple announcements. First, Board Member Don Sherry will be absent today. Board Member Gary Moselle will be absent today. Also, we have just wanted to inform the board that the BevMo appeal will be reviewed at council tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay.
And that's all.
Thanks very much. Anything by members? No? Okay. Subcommittee reports. No subcommittee reports, I don't think. So that brings us back to first item of the evening, Fowler Road, Fairview Avenue. Brings us up. New item, public hearing, 3:15. Are we allowed to start, Michelle?
Yeah, we're just a few minutes.
Okay.
Within the 15 minutes.
All right. Hey, Chris.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosemary Gaglione. I'm the Capital Improvement Program Manager with the City of Goleta. I have with me here today Gerald Kamadi, who's the Contract Project Manager for the Echo Fowler Project, and David Black, who's the Landscape Architect for the project. What you're going to look at today is a piece of a larger project, the Echo Fowler project, which consists of roundabouts on Hollister Avenue on either side of 217, and the extensions of Echo and Fowler Road, and additional roundabouts there. This project is going to improve circulation in this area of the city and will also improve access to and from Santa Barbara Airport. So what we're going to ask you to take a look at is specifically the roundabout at Fowler and Fairview. And David is going to go over the aesthetic details, and I'll let him take it from here.
Thank you, Rosemary. As she just indicated, this is the area of focus for this meeting. The reason that we're here before you is because this section of Fowler and this roundabout as it intersects Fairview going south, the airport, the long-term parking lot is right here. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. Is actually within the city of Santa Barbara city limits, so that's why it's before you. We've taken this sort of overview design to the City of Goleta DRB, and they've reviewed it already, and of course, because this is within your purview, we are here this afternoon. So this is essentially a concept review. We'll be sort of showing you the basic geometrics of the extension of Fowler from Kellogg on down to Fairview as it intersects. It's basically, I don't know what the overall right-of-way is, but there's a 8-foot bike lane, 5 foot of parkway strip, at least from here, and then a 5-foot pedestrian sidewalk, which extends the full length. But the parkway only begins right here, and that's why we show the street trees at this location, extending on down to the vicinity of the roundabout. I think the drawing pretty much speaks for itself. We have a palette of plant material. Most, if not all, of the trees that we're showing here are taken off the City of Goleta's street tree list. What sort of crosses my mind, we're trying to create some continuity between the roundabouts, at here at Fowler and also in Eckwell, and then up at Hollister and the 217. We're sort of aware, though, that there'll be a transition, obviously, from this roundabout to the improvements that are being made at the new airport terminal. But right now, we're calling out specific plant palette as far as street trees. The island oaks, for instance, are on the City of Goleta's list for median plantings, and we're showing as such. Most of the other ground-covered shrub plantings, as indicated here, are all native plant material. We're really focusing on low water, relatively low maintenance, if at all possible, approach to the landscape development. The roadway does cross over Old San Jose Creek at this location here. Just conceptually, there'll be a head wall and culvert undercrossing at this location. There'll be some minor riparian restoration work. As part of the mitigation for Fowler, we're obligated to provide mitigation, restoration, wetland restoration at another location, actually outside the city limits, in the amount of 30,000 square feet. Yes. But that's not shown on this plan here. So what we will do is just what's necessary in terms of riparian restoration at the actual intersection of the roadway and this culvert here. Again, this is sort of a suggestion just of how this head wall may look. Obviously, we're not making any suggestions in terms of materials other than the fact it'll be concrete, but it could be just straight stucco. It could be a stone finish. I have some, and you might want to provide us some input there. Of course, this roundabout will have a raised planter, not unlike what's, like you see at Milpas and maybe Coast Village Road. In my mind, as part of the design team, I sort of asking myself, well, what should be the nature of the materials for that raised planter? I see it probably as maybe either a sort of a stucco finish, not unlike, Milpas, but that does present some problems in terms of tire scuff marks and what have you. But at the same time, this does become sort of an entry to the airport area, and of course that's all going to be done in Spanish colonial and revival details and what have you. So there may be a need to sort of work off of that. So I'd welcome your comments there. The rest of it's pretty much straightforward. This plan pretty much indicates the limits of the planted areas as we see them, sidewalks and circulation, the pedestrian crossings, and are shown here as well. This is, we just have one other illustration. This is just a basic section of the roundabout indicating the the section of the raised planter area, the street trees in the parkways. I will point out, and then the riparian areas in some areas. I will point out we don't anticipate having these sort of traditional Cobra head lighting. What the city of Goleta is suggesting is that, at least for all the Eckwell Fowler development improvements, is that we come up with a fixture that is compatible with what is being addressed now in Old Town. Old Town is going through a sort of redevelopment phase now, and they'll probably come up with they will come up with a light fixture, which I'm sure we will use at the 217 Hollister intersection as well as the Eckwell roadway. I'm not entirely sure whether it's going to be appropriate here. I will say that. What I'd like to do is do a little bit more research into the fixtures that are being used as part of the airport project, and since this is a bit of a gateway to the airport, maybe we would be in our best interest to use a fixture that would be compatible with those. But we don't have that information right now. We haven't really pursued it. So that's basically what's being proposed. Again, this is just a conceptual presentation about what the city of Goleta is proposing in this area.
If I may just jump in for a second, Gerald Carney, the project manager, on the lighting issues around the roundabout. Since this is in the flight zone of the airport, there are height limitations.
Yes.
So as well as tree height, in fact.
Of course.
Okay. Seeing as this public hearing, do we have any public speakers? No one here to... Okay, I'll close that public comment section.
We
You
do
some
have a
letters?
letter from Ms. Paula Westbury that we'd like to acknowledge for the board.
Okay, thanks. I'll bring it back to the board for some questions. Keith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. David, are there any enhanced paving treatments, like at pedestrian crossings or anything like that, or is it just we're looking at all AC? Or
I think it's a little early to tell. I haven't really consulted with the engineers on this, but I would assume that yes, they're probably I'm going to anticipate that there'll probably be some sort of striping patterns for the pedestrian crossings, and then you can see there are sort of concrete weight islands in the medians at these locations. Whether it ends up being colored concrete or any special paving, I would assume that we'll probably have a enhanced paved apron around the planter, not unlike what's been done here in Santa Barbara up at Coast Village Road. But other than that, I would assume that it would be relatively straightforward in terms of the, because I'm assuming that the sidewalk would be pretty traditional material, but maybe when we get to the roundabout, it could be more enhanced.
Thanks, Keith. Chris?
Kind of curious about at the roundabout the location of the wall. Is that shown? Is it kind of at the edge of between the two?
Yeah, and actually, now that I look at this is probably the apron, and that represents the apron itself, and then the raised planter at this location.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that would be concrete also.
Yes. Yeah.
And then
It's a raised curb.
Gotcha. And then down at the east end over here, the bike path does that basically merge and become the sidewalk at that point?
They're Class 2 bike lanes.
I'm sorry?
Class 2.
Oh, okay.
It means that they're on the roadway, but there's a bike lane, as opposed to a Class 1, which would be at least 8 feet wide, restricted only to bicycles or pedestrians.
So it starts as class 1 in this area and then goes to a class 2, or is it all?
No, it's all Class 2.
Class 2.
The reason it's wide is
The button on the
to
right.
allow bicyclists to get off
His bike's not
if
on
they
a-
choose. sorry,
There you go.
is to allow bicyclists to get off if they don't want to circumvent the roundabout with the road, with the cars, they can get off and do the sidewalk method. That's why the sidewalk is wider. It's just like at Coast Village Road. It's similar, yeah.
Experienced bicyclists will just stay in the roundabout.
Okay, and those are my questions.
Paul?
Question having to do about the grades. Are you adding fill or raising the actual roadway from the existing elevations that are out there? Or what's the transition between the roundabout and Placentia Street? Is it about the same?
Most of
Flat?
that's pretty close. The areas where we're going up a little bit is to get over Old San Jose Creek.
Okay.
The bridge is just off again.
So is there going to be some berming along this roadway area here? Will there be some berming?
Yes, there'll be a little bit of a drop down.
4 feet or more than 4?
I don't know off the top of my head. I have a feeling it's probably less. At the bridge, at the culvert, which is a open side, 3-sided culvert, so it's natural bottom, the height is 6 feet. So that's from the grade
From the
of
water
of the
surface?
creek, yeah, or dry creek pretty much.
The bottom of the creek.
So I'd have to get back to you with what those elevations would be, yeah, in terms of
So this
fill.
way like that and then drop. Is that it?
It's going to go up and then down again,
down
I
again,
believe. Yeah.
And we'll have to bring back some suggestion for a railing detail here too at the bridge,
Okay.
which we don't show today.
Okay. Clay?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have one question. I think it's more related to just the overall project. It looks to me that this area is single lane from Fairview to Fowler. Is that correct? So I'm just curious. My question is more related to traffic. And has any traffic studies been done in this area to see that? And then I'm also wondering this connection from Kellogg. It seems like I don't want to get into a comment here, but my question is how much is this actually going to be used? Has that been studied? And is there a need for any additional lanes to go right? Because I would think a majority of people are coming in this direction.
No, we did. There were complete traffic studies done as part of the environmental document. That was one piece. I don't know if this was mentioned, but because 2 of the roundabouts on Hollister touch the 217 ramps, we're having to go through the entire Caltrans process with a project study report and a supplemental report and the traffic studies. And so, yes, that's all done. Roundabouts are kind of amazing because you can get so much volume through them. For example, if we didn't put roundabouts on Hollister, we would have to 6-lane it. But the two-lane roundabouts can handle the 6 lanes worth of traffic. So they do have tremendous capacity. So this is properly sized, and we've sized everything to meet what we know about build out in the area as well.
Okay, I just saw David unfurl this here. So this is something that's in the city of Goleta's
Correct.
purview.
Yes.
I see. And then the one, I think I wasn't sure whether Chris was alluding to this, how the sidewalk has a little parkway right here, a planted parkway, and then it snaps back tight to the asphalt surface. And so what's the reason for between here and here to not have this continuous little green parkway?
It's right away. That's the road width that we have. We have business. We have things going on in some of these areas. So
And you just don't have, you don't have...
All that portion on the east is existing South Street, which we're just maintaining that right away. Whereas from this point on, it's all brand new, virgin
I see.
territory, so to speak, and then hence the ability for us to enhance it even more.
Okay.
And actually, just a point of clarification: the city's jurisdictional line, which really isn't shown here, is about there.
I see.
City of Santa Barbara.
That's
Right.
between the two cities. Yeah.
Okay. Great. So on to
A quick
Chris,
question,
yeah?
actually. I'm just curious about some of the land uses adjacent to this. Like, it looks like we're ending with the sidewalk. And is there not a need for landscaping on the outside of those walkways. I'm kind of wondering what's happening here and this lot.
That would be, well, we're taking sidewalk or landscaping to the end of what's going to be the right-of-way, so then you get into private property.
Okay.
It's nice when you can to separate, to have a little separation with plantings between the sidewalk and the road. It makes
definitely,
walking more pleasant, so if you have to choose between one or the other, that's where you want to put it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if this is like, if this was an open field, it'd be nice to have a little bit of landscaping
Yeah.
out in that area, but it's all private property.
Well, that's airport property, flight
And
zone.
of course, with the airport, I mean, placement of everything is critical because of the device they have that senses what's happening near and around the runway.
Mm-hmm.
So any little thing we do, they have to recalibrate all these sensors.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so on to comments, Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess to weigh in on the raised planter, I would prefer, I guess, to see that in like a integral colored concrete, and then maybe that can tie into the creek structure as a similar color rather than plaster. It doesn't seem like it's large enough to kind of warrant that emphasis. And I guess the only other comment would be to, look for opportunities to emphasize the pedestrian crossings with any sort of enhanced paving. I think that's about it.
Thanks. Chris?
I agree with those comments as well, and not much really else to add. I think you guys answered my questions. I really like the plant palette, and I think that'll work well. And as much as we can do to sort of tie in the materials to, because as David said, it is sort of an entry to the airport, so anything we can do to sort of unify those, I think, is a positive step.
Thanks. Paul?
Comment having to do with the way the sidewalk is right up to the end of the right-of-way, to the edge of the right-of-way, like you said. The two concerns is I'm familiar with this area. It's kind of like a gravel parking lot for like this auto storage place. And just the transition between where the sidewalk is, the end of the right-of-way, and if that's 4 feet higher or 3 feet higher, there'll have to be a retaining wall and a fence. And so additional information needs to be known if you are adding soil to raise the road. What are you going to happen at the private property where the land's not being raised? So that just needs to be followed up on. And then on the airport side of the property, if the airport fence is going to be right on the property line, or is it going to be 12 inches back, and is there an opportunity to do some? They don't want vines because they don't want to hide anything, but just where that fence is going to be in relationship to the sidewalk. So just a little bit more information about the edges is what I'd be looking for.
Okay.
And I like Keith's comment about the integral concrete color.
Thanks, Paul. Clay?
Nothing new to add.
And myself too, I agree with what's been said already. The integral color concrete on the circular planter, enhanced paving. I'm not sure. I'll leave it at that. Enhanced paving and the edges is good comment. I think I just agree with what was said. Okay, so I'm open to a motion.
Actually, can I add one more comment again? Looking at all the nice curvilinear forms, and then I see these straight lines in here, and for some reason those are bothering me. So I'm just kind of wondering if we can sort of soften a few of these edges so it's, a little more rounded, and reduce the amount of right angles and sharp angles.
We'll look at that.
Okay, we're open for motion. Want to take a stab at it, anyone?
Cheryl.
Thanks, Keith.
So I guess this would be indefinite continuance back to full board. Board looks forward to seeing further detail on the creek structure, railings, and any proposed fencing or retaining conditions at the project edges. The board prefers an integral color concrete material for the roundabout planter. The board would look for opportunities for the use of enhanced paving at select locations. The board would suggest studying ways to soften some of the straight edges in portions of the roundabout. And I think that's all I have. Okay.
Like, do you have the crosswalks? Yeah. You had to enhance.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a second? Can I have a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second it. And
Second by Paul.
To the motion to, we look forward to for additional information about the lighting fixtures for the project.
Great. Thanks. So all those in favor of the motion, let's say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, item number 2, 540 West Pueblo Street. Not here yet. We will take a short break until our second item of the evening, the applicant arrives. Thank you.
Hold of them, so.
Yeah.
We may as well get
Okay,
up to speed.
I'd like to reopen the ABR for today, July 26, 2010, and we're at item number 2, 540 West Pueblo Street.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have to step down for this one. So.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thanks, Keith. All right.
That's right.
Here's a marital connection.
Probably happens a lot, doesn't it? Here are photos I grabbed that you looked at the last time,
Yes.
and I'm not sure if... There you go. I have those.
Okay. Yeah, I remember this.
So, Brian Cornell, I'll give you a quick overview. You guys did see this before it went to Planning Commission. Took a while to get there, as is so often the case. I don't know if you want to read your last comments
Minutes?
or not, Mr. Chair, but
Yeah. Let's do that.
Okay.
So let's see. This was January 2008. No, December. 1st of December 2008. Last time here. Continued indefinitely to PC. Okay. Architectural design guidelines. Overall, the project meets the design guidelines, and there is interaction with the adjacent nursery school. Architectural character is deemed good, acceptable. Some board members feel the architectural style could be modified. Size, bulk, scale, and height deemed good, acceptable. A majority of the board feels that the size, bulk, and scale of the building is appropriate, but some of the board feel that the bulkiness of the structure needs to be restudied and incorporate relief or step-back elements into the design. Refinement of the parking structure and front entry, which is too tight to the sidewalk, is requested. Return with additional parking structure design drawings. Sensitivity to adjacent landmarks deemed good, acceptable due to preservation of on-site trees and open space provided along the creek area. Public and ocean views acceptable due to open space provided along the creek area. Landscaping progressing. The board would like to see additional landscaping and separation between the parking structure and the residential units, in addition to the access driveway off Pueblo Street. Applicant to restudy plantings and open spaces. That's what she said.
So,
Chair, could I?
yeah, go
Excuse me,
Yes.
I just arrived. I
Our
wanted to
planner.
just make a little comment first.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you looked at the Planning Commission resolution or not.
I have it in my hand here for the design review items. I see we have 2 items on design review.
Just wanted to point out that the Planning Commission just had the one item about
The parking.
the parking that was added. And
Yes,
so-
it said reduce the number of parking spaces to be provided on site such that it meets but does not exceed city parking requirements. Location of such parking to be determined in consultation with the ABR.
So that would
So
result in,
it wants you to minimize the parking then.
just to meet the zoning ordinance requirement, they have 5 additional parking spaces over and above what's required. So This would result in 5 spaces being eliminated from the structure.
Yeah. So why would that be? I'm just curious.
They had some comments, which she'll address, about the parking structure in general to
Okay.
reduce it and
Okay.
the mass as much as possible, and that would be one way to do it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I think the real reason that came up, though, was the project is going to pursue a LEED accredited or certification, and we're shooting for silver. And one of the LEED points is that you don't exceed the requirements for parking in a community. And it kind of worked out because of the configuration of the parking structure more than anything that we had more spaces. And in light of the language in that, what I've done today is printed exactly the set that went to the Planning Commission. So that's what you guys are seeing, and we'd like to get preliminary approval as the basis for beginning design development, but I also assumed you guys might want to see some additional things, but I hope we have enough information. But let me go through at least what we've done since we last spoke, and I'll just start with the site plan. I'll tell you that Planning Commission was very appreciative of this open space that we are creating by removing the existing building and the amount of setback. So they were very happy with the main building. Since you all saw it, and I remember vaguely, I think it was maybe Gary at the time that was feeling like maybe the building should be more Hispanic, and we felt very strongly from the beginning that it really shouldn't be. Looking quickly at the elevations, one of the things that we have done is modified this entry element. When you last saw it, it was stone all the way up to like the 3rd level, and so we've stepped that down, and I think it's much more successful now. And in this package, I won't go through all of them, but we have, and this is what we showed the Planning Commission, we've illustrated all of the vantage points that you see this building, this one in particular being from when you're getting off Pueblo, right there when you make the turn and you're crossing that little bridge. This would be the vantage point, which is really the due south orientation, which is going to be, as you'll see when I flip to the landscape plan, it's going to be heavily vegetated. So we show it, the naked building with the existing vegetation and then the new. And we go through and give you those views throughout. And so this really illustrates, hi Martha, this really illustrates that change to that entry element, which has helped to step it down. As far as because of the language on the parking, so I thought I would come and discuss with you what I think makes sense. We have really just 3 on-grade spaces. The main entrance to the project for patients and visitors is going to be from Pueblo, and they'll make this circle and drop folks off or go ahead and park in the parking structure. And we've agreed with the Oaks that we're going to have signage that asks people to enter and exit off of Pueblo to minimize the traffic that's on Junipero here, because they have people that take kids in and out all day long. So that's the basic intent of the circulation. So the only on-grade spaces we have that aren't in the structure are these 3 right here. So those become the first candidate to just create additional landscaping between the Oaks and us and get rid of those spaces. As far as the parking structure is concerned, at that point, then I just have 2 additional spaces that I need to get rid of to get to ordinance, because I have to lose 5 to get it to ordinance. And the parking structure, the way that it works is when you come in off of Pueblo, this is in relationship to the plan, and by the way, the way the building works is the first floor is radiation oncology. The 2nd floor is administration and community meeting rooms and additional back of house kind of space where we actually have a connection from the elevator to what is going to be sort of receiving. And then the 3rd floor is medical oncology. And one of the real important aspects of this design is the placement of the infusion area so that it has beautiful mountain views and is a really peaceful and calming space. So as the parking structure goes up its different tiers, it reaches to the top just about at the 3rd floor level. So structurally, to lose just 2 spaces, I really can't pull it back to the next column line. So what I'm imagining is that the 4th space, we would just lose the one at the very top up here. And then the 5th space, I would probably end up losing, if it's okay with you guys, wherever it's convenient within the parking structure to, facilitate. For instance, maybe I lose this space, and that's where I put the backflow device for the parking structure, because that's one of your other comments. But that's basically the parking arrangement and what I would recommend we do as far as losing the spaces. And then, as I said, looking at Martha's plan, we would just then go ahead and utilize this area for additional oak tree planting. So that's where that is. We have also, since we last met, worked on the design of the parking structure, because we knew that was an issue. They show up in these elevations, but what I brought for you today is just a little bit of an enlarged hand drawing so that you get a sense of what the intent is here with the parking structure. We've tried to keep the footprint of this as absolutely condensed as possible, and I'll tell you, based on going back to the plan real quick, based on my dimensions and things, we've made this exactly the same as the Pueblo parking structure, which is a pretty tight dimension for back out. It's actually under the city of Santa Barbara standard by a slight amount. So this whole site plan was predicated on making that as condensed and efficient a footprint as possible. And like the Pueblo parking structure, I actually showed the Planning Commission a graphic, by the way, that illustrated that the Pueblo parking structure, when you look at it from Pueblo, is a little more than twice as long as what you're looking at right here, this being that north elevation, which is the elevation that backs up to the little cottages along Junipero. So like the Pueblo parking structure, because I think it's successful, we want this to be an open parking garage to meet the code requirements for that. And so we just want to sort of bracket the more rational architecture of the parking structure with these plastered elements. So in this particular case, you will see the actual slope of the parking structure. We'll do nice architectural finish on the concrete for the actual concrete structure, and cap all of that with sandstone, and then likewise cap the parapet walls at the plaster walls with sandstone, and typically then have a sandstone base that will run around the entire building, and insert into the plaster elements these window components that would actually be glazed. We wouldn't be dependent on these openings for the ventilation requirements. That would all be achieved through the openings here, so we would actually put windows in these locations. So this drawing sort of illustrates what that architectural is intended, a bigger scale on the parking structure. And it is, from a scale standpoint, it's almost exactly what you see in that Pueblo parking structure now along Pueblo. But of course, the important thing here is that we're set back some almost 86 feet from the back of sidewalk on Junipero. And I think in our 3D views that we did, we actually have a pretty good illustration of how I think at the end of the day, you're just never going to see that structure because of those little cottages that are there on Junipero in front. So there's that view, and then there's the view looking in the opposite direction. So you can see that you do get glimpses of the parking structure, but by the time that it is you account for the existing vegetation and the new trees, really is going to disappear. This is showing the view coming into the site, by the way, from the Junipero entrance. So I should probably then, Martha, if you want to take just a moment to describe the basic landscaping concept, and then we'll answer questions.
It's Martha DeGases from Arcadia Studio, and basically we're nestling the building in within this oak woodland, trying to carry on the spirit of the Mission, the creek. And so what we've created on the creek side of the property within the setback is the vegetation's all native vegetation. It's been specified by the DUDEC biologist. And I have a copy of that plant palette if you're interested, but it is all native species. And then we have, between the creek and the building, we've got basically a park with a few gathering areas. Some are more private than others. We have kind of a larger area that could be for, up to 20 or 25 people for family gatherings and so on. And then these meandering pathways, and then the little pockets where people can have private moments or just be out there alone and contemplate the natural setting. Between the building and the first connecting pathway, we've got a water feature that would be viewed from the offices on the lower floor and overviewed, of course, by the upper floors. And that also creates sort of a privacy barrier from the pathways and the counseling offices that are on that side of the building. Additionally, we have a lawn area that will be a mixture of native grasses, carex, and so on that will be mowed periodically, and that can be used for some of the recreation activities that the Cancer Center holds, Tai Chi and yoga and things like that. And we've got some retaining walls that will be a stone in this area that will be kind of a stone texture or setting. And then there's also a detention area between this stone wall here facing Pueblo Street and the street side. And also we are directing some of the site drainage into a cobbled swale that sort of meanders along paralleling the path of the creek, and that will empty into this detention basin that is between the landscaped areas and Pueblo Street. In addition, we have a fence that will control access into the site from the street, and that will be a wrought iron or ornamental iron fence that basically cuts along the top of the detention basin and then through the landscaping so that it's not really going to be perceived by the visitors to the site or off-site. We also have a green roof component over the accelerator, linear accelerator. Linear accelerator. So that will help control the site drainage also. So I think we have a really good program for maintaining roof drainage and so on site and percolating. We've are removing a few oak trees, and we're replacing those with 22 new oak trees that will be 24-inch box or possibly greater, but definitely 24-inch box.
So
and
that's this symbol.
Yeah.
Those are all the new oaks.
They're also carrying into along Junipero Street. We're adding some street trees there and replacing one elm tree with an oak tree. And then there's existing oak trees between the cottages, and we're adding a few where we can, where we've got open space. To screen the garage, we're considering using some tall canopy, evergreen canopy, narrow kind of screening trees, and those would be like a firewheel tree, which is Stenocarpus, or a Hymenosperum or sweet shade tree. And the oak trees that we're protecting are just sort of shown as this amorphous shading area. So we're creating pretty broad planting areas around the existing oaks in order to protect them, and also using permeable paving under the oak tree drip lines. And in fact, permeable paving, I believe, all the way on the surface driveways.
So I don't think there's any question if we do what I had proposed, we would just put additional oaks.
Yeah, we do have some vegetation along that edge, but we can certainly add an oak or two in there. There's some existing pine trees along the preschool area that are Torrey pines that we'd be protecting. And in addition, we're going to be adding some screening trees adjacent to the office building that's over there to the west, or the east, excuse me.
I think that's it for now.
Okay. Chris, did you see this project before?
I think so.
Maybe what we'd like to do, Brian, is also, I know that I remember the project architecturally, but if you could take a little bit of time just to go over some of the architecture of the main building,
Okay.
seeing as you focused on the parking already.
Okay. I think the real intent for this building is, because it's so set back, and the nature of what the work is here, obviously with Cancer Center, is to make this building sort of settle back, and for lack of a better example of what we're thinking in terms of architecture, it is sort of the spirit of the craftsman style as it was represented in the the grand lodges of the West, frankly, the Wani and some of the other great lodges where they use the craftsman style detailing, but in a larger scale. And so we're really introducing, we want, first of all, because of the function, particularly the third floor, for there to be as much natural light into this, into the the second and third floor as possible. Obviously the first floor, being radiology, doesn't require as much. So we've sort of created this rhythm of the three levels, where there's more of a stone base associated with the building, and then the wood siding with then more glass on the third level, and what will end up being a really nicely detailed eave condition that will provide a deep overhang for sun control, but also maximize the roof area for solar panels. And then frankly, we're planning on just covering the roof that is a very, very low slope roof with an array of as many of photovoltaics as we can get to maximize that, and just let those be honest, set back a little bit from the leading edge, which will basically be a copper gutter running all the way around the building. So the intent is just a very simple, elegant building using the native sandstone as an important base element throughout. But at the end of the day, it's really going to settle into the landscape that surrounds it.
Okay. I think there's one element I don't know if you could brush over is that there was an issue with the tightness of the sidewalk to the main entry on that side of the building,
right.
And what, if anything, you were able to achieve in the period between then and now?
Okay. We did pull it back, and let me see what, I think we called out that dimension. Before, we actually had this corner was coming to a corner here, and so it was a tight condition at this walkway. And obviously we want to have as much landscaping that screens the office building, the medical office building that is there. And I think that condition, although it does show on the elevations, probably shows best on one of these renderings. Yeah, I mean, it basically shows here. So the idea is to go ahead and pull that first floor back and have a stone column that'll be at that area, just to create the breathing room and some space for landscaping, so the building isn't right up to that corner. So that was the solution to that particular problem.
Okay. All right. Let's see, we have any speaker slips at all? No? I'll close that portion, bring it back to the board for questions.
Mr. Chair, I'm
Yep.
sorry, we do have a letter that we need to acknowledge for the board. Ms. Paula Westbury.
Thanks very much. So, Chris, questions?
Actually, Mr. Chair, I think I did see this because I recall that issue with where the building intersects the sidewalk.
Yeah.
A couple questions. The meadow and lawn area, can we just go to the landscape plan? So, excuse me, is this basically the main activity area then?
That would be the main activity area, yeah.
And how much activity are we talking about? I mean, is it daily use? I'm just kind of wondering about the meadow as opposed to just going with a real lawn there, but if there's going to be a lot of use and if that's going to get torn up over time.
I don't think it's going to be extremely active use. It would be more quiet use, and it would be also an area if people happen to have their children on site or whatever, that they could, fiddle around on there. It's they're not going to be, doing frisbee, I don't think. So, like I said, though, it was mentioned to us by the Cancer Center Activities Director that they might be doing yoga, taking mats out there and that kind of thing. So
We don't know at the end of the day exactly how much freeway noise is really going to be here. I can tell you that when you stand on, the other side of the building now, and just as a reminder, that building that is there is right, almost, hard against the creek. But when they've got a little outdoor space right here now, and there's a lot of freeway noise. This building that's across the creek blocks it a little bit, but that's one of the big reasons for this water feature. But I don't think it's going to be that active. It's going to be a place to go, but there is noise that we have to contend with there.
Okay. All right. And it looks like a good number of oaks. Were you given a replacement ratio for the oaks? Are we meeting that?
we are meeting the replacement ratio, and that's one of the conditions of the project. So,
Sure that. And then I'm looking at this. This is you said some sort of a wrought iron or some sort of a fence that you'd see through. Is that what this is?
that's correct.
Okay. Is there a reason that wasn't brought out a little closer to the street?
Well, I think some of that was that we wanted to give a little bit more landscaping to the street and not hog it all for the
And the
the
planting
center.
through there will obviously be low because it'll be a
it'll be
basin, so it won't
kind
be-
of a wet-dry planting palette, and probably comprised of a lot of grasses and things like that. So it'll be tidy, but it won't be groomed.
That's the actual detention basin that Penfield and Smith has drawn up.
Okay. So it sort of winds through there.
So I think your idea was to kind of run the fence sort of through the
Yeah,
middle of that.
yeah, we'll
right?
take it not to the on the bottom, but more on the upper edge.
And of course, right here, this area would be dealt with. You're going to have a gate.
Yeah, we're going to have a pedestrian gate there.
One of the things just I wanted to mention here, since we're here, is you'll notice on the elevations this stair enclosure is all glass, and that came from the input we got from staff, where they don't like using the elevator. They really want to be able to use the stair to go down to radiology or whatever. And also, this will become the main access point for staff to go out and use this area.
Okay. And then this, I assume, is a head wall for the drainage?
It's not actually, it's
That's a sign.
signage.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Which I was thinking, by the way, that might be one of our options for hiding the backflow preventer, but I actually would like to find, if I can, a spot in the building as opposed to putting it out there.
Okay. And then one last question. So this is going to be iron fence.
That's right there is an existing low wall and fencing, and so the intent of that note is to indicate that the preschool is interested in being able to see into the site. They don't want to be closed off from it, and we thought also that from the other direction it would be nice to have the patients or users observe the preschool. So we just want to keep that as a transparent edge.
And I should also mention that the recommendations of the geomorphologist is to just keep that wall that is here intact and not disrupt the creek in any way. So that's showing
steep
us. So
concrete
that's all that existing.
swale, basically.
It kind of shows in this photo. It's sort of a slump stone wall that's got open iron on top.
I think those are my questions.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Paul?
I have a simple one, I think. At the parking garage,
You said that there was windows and then there's open areas. Have you used glass windows for parking structures before?
Mm-hmm.
And they maintenance is not an issue. They stay clean or they get maintained well.
Well, they'll have to be maintained. But Cancer Center obviously has staff for their facilities, so it would be maintained by them. I just think, I mean, obviously the option would be to not glaze them, but I was just, concerned about the look of that.
And you prefer the look of having a glazed opening versus just an open opening?
Well, if I'm going to do a window like that, my concern about it not being glazed is that it'll sort of feel like it's bombed out structure, you know? I think the glazing will tend to humanize it a little bit more.
Okay. That was my one question.
Clay?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions. On
The houses on Junipero Street, are those, I know that you're doing work on them, are they intended to be for sale units afterwards, or?
No, they're for
they
rent,
for-
and they're going to be basically for the made available to Cancer Center employees, but they'll remain as rental units.
Okay. And then this one area on A15, the large sandstone wall that faces the Oaks. I wasn't looking at your floor plan. I'm assuming that's mechanical equipment, utility.
That's that linear accelerator. So that's a concrete bunker that we're just going to clad in sandstone, and then that's the portion that as a one-story element is the portion that will get the green roof on top, so that the folks looking down on it will look down on a green roof.
So is there any ventilation? Anything?
There are 24-inch thick concrete walls.
And how tall is that again?
Let me see if I have a dimension on the elevation. I don't think it's much more than 16 feet tall. I don't seem to call it out, but I think that's about what that height is 16 feet.
This is 45 here.
So maybe it's closer to 20. Do we have a scale? No, we're not supposed to use those, but...
116, a 16.
So... Yeah, I'm showing it as 20.
Okay. So a question to Brian is have you been able to achieve any sort of setbacks from the bulkiness that we had mentioned in the minutes?
When I'm
Other
trying
than
to
that-
think back where we were, I mean, we obviously have done this
That.
condition here. I think that I don't know that we had the trellis element in front on this side when we looked at it the last time. But
Other than that portion that came out of the entry.
which dealt with the feeling at the pedestrian level. It's really, I think this is the largest component that we've really stepped back, because this piece was uncomfortable. But obviously I think the rhythm of this, it's important that when we look at probably look at the floor plans to really show this, that this whole element right here that is sort of the leading edge closest to Pueblo is already stepped back and will be a patio portion. So we where it was most visible, we have stepped that back, and then of course against the Oaks preschool, we pulled the second and third floor back considerably as well.
Okay. All right. So I think I'd like to go on to comments. Chris, you comfortable starting?
Sure. First of all, I would just applaud the nice big green buffer zone around. That's a big plus. I think we don't see enough of that. I'm curious about I assume it's the trash area here. Is that what that is? I'm just
There's a couple of trash areas here and here.
I'm just kind of wondering if we're going to eliminate these 3 spots, if there's an opportunity to move that over there and eliminate the need for all this extra paving.
Well, this I have to have as a hammerhead. So this is to be able to bring the fire truck into this area.
Fair enough. And then the only other thing I was looking at is sort of more of an architectural thing. It was natural concrete with a sandstone cap on the middle portion of that. I'm just worried that has an unfinished look. I mean, I've seen, you see a stone cap on a wall when the plaster hasn't been done yet, and it just the colors clash to me. So I'm going to leave that to my architectural colleagues here, but that was just something that sort of struck me in the beginning of the presentation there. So then the only other thing, I like all the layouts and the great buffer zone. This to me just got a little close, right to the edge there. So maybe that can sort of shift a little bit, that one little sitting area. And beyond that, I think it's looking good.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Paul?
Thank you. The comment about the sandstone on top of the gray concrete, I actually was fine with that look. It didn't bother me as rough as it was, because it's kind of an earthy color or earthy style of a building. And I liked the way the parking garage was put together. The only concern I had was the windows, because I would think that in the city parking garages, we have them as open with a little railing, and people can lean through there and pretend like they're Romeo and Juliet or something. There's a little interaction that happens there, and if they get all marred with just lack of maintenance and bubble gum or whatever, they just get dirty. But if you have enough maintenance to clean them, that was the one comment that I noticed on those windows, is what makes it work well is that they're clean, and if they're all dirty and stuff, it's like... But other than that, the project is, it's fine for the neighborhood and its site. So it's a good presentation.
Thanks. Clay?
I was already on. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think this is a great project. I've never had any problems with the style of the architecture. I think it's great. There's a couple areas that I've my eye keeps catching, and I keep wanting to see if I'm missing something. And the two areas for me are that sandstone wall around the accelerator. It seems heavy, and I think it's just the material use. It's not so much the mass or the size of it. It seems like a very large, heavy element on that side of the street, or that side of the project, that's actually facing the Oaks. And it's not a deal breaker for me, but to me it seems like it could be clad with something else, or it could relate a little bit more to other parts of the project. And sort of, I know you're going to put vegetation in it, so you're using this sort of green siding. If it started to disappear behind the vegetation or something like that, it just seems like a very large kind of element facing that direction. And then the only other thing for me is the parking garage. I keep wanting to. I appreciate where it's come from, because I remember last time it was very much more of your traditional parking garage. I'm having trouble with the relationship. I think the architecture is really successful on the building, and then the sort of the darker brown concrete, I'm just looking for cues of how it relates. The one thing I was wondering was on the north elevation, which would back up to the small homes. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
They're right in front of this.
Yes.
Let's see, that's the north elevation, so this would be the west side. Is that right?
Yes.
The west.
It's facing northwest. Correct.
The driveway kind of comes in here, and
yes.
It seems to me that if this corner
So he's looking at this corner right here.
sort of related a little bit more to the architecture of the building, because that's what you see through the new driveway in there from Junipero, that it seems that one piece of the building wants to be dealt with delicately. And even if some of these buildings along Junipero have siding and other elements that are, maybe there's a cue from those buildings that relates to the siding on the cancer center, and none of these things are real deal breakers for me, but those are the two areas that I've sort of been stuck on looking through the set, trying to figure out, is there another alternative to maybe parts of the parking garage and that one wall. So. But overall, I think it's a great project, and I really appreciate going up in the building and creating green space. I think it's a successful thing that you've done to allow for a really nice green area, and by taking the building higher, I think it's a good solution.
Thanks, Clay.
Mr. Chair, if I can tag on to what he said.
Go ahead.
Having to do with the stonework, what I was thinking in my head, but I thought was premature, was different size stones, because this one plane at the accelerator is such a huge plane that perhaps they can get some larger boulders that start at the bottom and work your way up, because you made reference to the WPA projects, and some of them had some pretty massive boulders at the bottom, and that might help the scale, and then you can play with that theme in some of the other corners. But that's just something to think about.
Yeah, I agree. First of all, I think it's a really good project. I think the orientation of the building, the open space, the entries and exits, I think they're all very sensitively done to maximize the ability to put a building of this scale in that site. And I think it does it very well. I feel that the style is fine where it is. I have the same sensitivities about the big box, the big stone box, and I think that the ideas that were thrown out already, I think that some of them can work. I think with a big clad stone box like that, something that the finish that would throw the more shadow on it might be able to help break down its mass, but I think what you're hearing is that the stone finish on it and the size of the scale of the box, something in the finish can help it break that scale down is going to be helpful. I think the solution for the parking, taking out those 3 on the outside level and putting in some trees there is an excellent idea. I think the idea of the other 2 that Brian suggested is also a good idea, and I think that's fine. The entry walkway being very tight to the entry, I like what you did with the tower in bringing the scale down. Let me just go back to that. And I just need the site plan here, actually, Brian. Yeah, this is fine. So I like what you did with the tower, elevation-wise. I like what you did here, and I see the challenge that you have in being able to get up here. And I wondered if, for the security of the pedestrian walking here, I don't know whether your detail here is that this is flush, or whether that this has a slight soft bump to come down to here.
No, I would have a curb here.
Right.
And then we would probably transition to a condition where someone could be offloaded at this point without a curb.
And that's all I was thinking about, is just to ensure that we had that elevational change, just for that person walking there can feel that there's that little difference, and it would feel differently if it were flush all the way through here. So I think that's a good. I think and I think at this stage I'm fine with it. I like the comments that were made by Clay on this corner of the building here, and particularly that elevation that we were looking at.
Should we go to the elevations?
Yeah, the colored elevations, where I think it's back here, where right here. And this is without the tree that's there right now, but I guess if you're walking along here and you're standing underneath the tree and you're looking here, that's what you see. And that's the entrance the aperture as you start going into the project. So I think that those were really good comments that Clay gave about that corner, and I would support those heartily to see if you could look at that corner to maybe help there. Other than that, we'd love to be able to see some in-progress detailing when you start to work on the detailing of this if possible.
No, I think we should plan on coming back in progress on a couple of occasions, just because otherwise it'll be too much to review.
At the end.
So I would be happy to do that.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
Other than that, I'm fine.
So let's just talk about a few of those things, starting with the linear accelerator real quickly. Obviously, that element, it is going to be screened heavily by the plantings that are going around it, and obviously putting, sandstone veneer on that is not inexpensive at all. So, I'm certainly, one possible solution there was to give that, and actually going back to what you were saying, I think one of the unifying elements that we can't forget is the sandstone. That's what I really want to be probably the primary unifying element. And I also think that, the plaster element, which we are showing plaster on portions of the actual cancer center building, maybe I want to bring that same color together to help unify it as well. There isn't a lot, but we do have it along the trellis elements that I'm showing here, for instance, and that might help. But do we consider not doing that whole thing? Is that more of a finish like these walls, where we do a sandstone cap and we let it be plaster and give it a wainscot and assume that it is going to be heavily landscaped, and it actually breaks it, the band of the wainscot of stone, which we could still use the bigger stones and maybe even hold that wainscot up higher, but then let 2/3 of it be the darker plaster with a cap and just plant it out.
Well, I'll just give my piece. We let the others come in. I think my first thought, actually, when I looked at it, is the building actually at the base level has quite a lot of sandstone already. And I actually thought that putting sandstone around this box was maybe taking it a little bit over the edge in terms of how much sandstone. So, I actually looked at it and I said, thinking to myself, how about if that was, I don't know how you're building it, if it's reinforced concrete?
No, it's poured, it's a vault,
okay.
It's poured.
So I was thinking, if that was reinforced concrete and that was colored concrete, if that was done in some sort of pattern that had any kind of undulation in it in boards, or I think that within the style that you have, I think that there could be a solution there. I don't want to say that that's it, because I'm only looking at this for a couple of minutes, and you've been living with it for a long time. But that's what just kind of jumped into my head.
Well, it would also pick up, obviously, to answer your question before, Chris, we did this again, take a look at, next time you're in the cottage area, look at the concrete that's on the Pueblo parking structure, because that did end up having to be sacked so that it has a nice finish, so it actually looks good.
Yeah.
When it's all said and done, it wouldn't just be the raw look of concrete, and so we could do a similar thing there, and that would sort of bring that the concrete sensibility around and just be very functional and natural, and
but keep it in that color. Or keep it in a strong sandstone color.
Do it in color as opposed to the natural.
As opposed to the natural concrete color or the gray. That's what I feel would then enhance that concrete mass, because it's in that color. But that's one of my thoughts. Anybody have a?
My 2 cents, I would concur with anything like that, even if it was plastered or solid concrete is more natural. But then you have to deal with construction, quality of construction versus plaster. You can hide a lot of sins or sack it, like you said, and then take that money for all that stone veneer and place it more at the pedestrian level where people are actually going to experience it, because there is a lot of landscaping and it's your back of house side. So I don't have a problem with the size of it, giving its functionality and what it is, and simplify the material on the elevation. I actually could support that.
I have a quick question. Now that you mentioned, cost savings with removing that stone, all the sidewalks throughout, are they all enhanced concrete for the most part?
Yeah, I think that what we're planning to do is unit pavers in the driveway that are permeable, and then colored concrete for the walkways that'll be scored in a pattern.
Because that might give you an opportunity to do flagstone on the pathways or
Yeah,
something
I
like
think
that for
our main concern with using flagstone might be, we want a perfectly smooth surface for
rolling thing.
yeah, wheelchairs and walkers and that
Okay.
kind of thing. But yeah, I think we want a pretty clean score line in those concrete areas.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Thanks, Clay.
I'll make a motion for preliminary approval with the following comments.
Chair, could I just ask a question? There are a number of the residential units. I don't know if you've looked at those yet. That's part of the project. Some new units and rehabilitation of the other units on Junipero.
Oh, these are all, yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't really.
Yeah, so we do have all 4 elevations of these. I think you can get a pretty clear intent from them. This building that is on the on your right here is actually being added on to. So this is the existing building, and it's got some funkiness that we're going to bring it back to be more traditional. It's got those classic little aluminum sort of squiggly balcony supports, that they've replaced the columns with, that sort of thing. Likewise, this building that's on the other side of the driveway from Junipero is going to be cleaned up, and that'll all be under the guise of our historian. This is a new building where we're sort of picking up the cues from one of the buildings that was over on Pueblo. This is, of course, the existing Breast Cancer Resource Center, which will be restored. We're taking off a little shed off the back. And this is an entirely new duplex building that's really sort of designed to be like a little bungalow with dormer windows. So these likewise, I think that we could, I think there's enough here to grant at least preliminary, with the understanding we would come back in progress and look at enlarged elevations of these guys. But the intent here is all traditional detailing and, make those work with the partie of the neighborhood.
And these, the ones that are on the north elevation on the street side, that's in your perspective.
Yeah, those buildings then all show up in color on those perspectives. So I'll just run quickly. So if we look at this perspective, that's the little building that is going to be that's going to be fixed up. It's currently medical office space. At the other end is the existing building that has the funny little railings. Mm-hmm. The red one is new. This is the Breast Cancer Resource Center, and then this is an all-new building.
This is an all-new building.
Yeah. So that, this element is, and I don't know if it shows on the elevations, but that obviously there will be columns there and, an authentic front porch to that building.
If I could add a thought, just as we welcome it coming back to see in the larger scale, but the one thought would be is the whole sensitivity that we had towards this corner, we're also looking at the side of this building, which I think really can do with a little bit more happening, seeing that this is a big entry here to this whole project. And I think that if you look at that for sensitivity, we'd appreciate that look or relook.
It's the west elevation of 529 Junipero.
Yeah. And then it's possible that this perspective is not showing the thickness of the roof as it overhangs to the front of the street there, but it looks like that sliver is that sheet.
Yeah.
And so if you just see what that looks like as a...
Yeah, these will all have to be, completely traditionally detailed and done right.
Mr. Chair,
Thanks, Clay.
I'll work on floating a motion here.
Yep.
Given the new information that we weren't looking at previously, I think I'd like to start off preliminary approval. You want indefinite continuance back to the board? Definite continuance.
Yeah, so we can set up a new
definite continuance with the following comments. The board is supportive of the aesthetic of the, well, let's just say mass, bulk, and scale, and the architecture as proposed for the Cancer Center. Study the finish on the accelerator. Is that what we're calling that?
Linear accelerator.
Linear
Yeah.
accelerator portion of the building. Study the finish on the garage, particularly where visible from Junipero Street. The proposed removal of 5 spaces as proposed. The removal of 5 spaces as proposed in the meeting is acceptable to the board. One landscape comment, I believe, Chris, was move the seating area near the oaks on the southwest portion of the site. Is that the right one? Is that the right spot? Okay. The new home, the architecture of the buildings on Junipero is appropriate for the neighborhood, and we look for more sensitivity on the building at 529 Junipero, the new building. The next comment would be, it looks like you are doing this, but just to maintain the porches and the small-scale street presence that's currently there. That's all I've got.
Great, Clay. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
By Paul. Under discussion, any items?
I would just put in the motion that it will the project should return for in-progress review.
Yeah.
Kathy, can you just put that at the beginning of the motion, the project to return to full board for
In progress.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, as read, say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. Well
Great.
done, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks
Appreciate
very
your
much.
comments.
Yep. Okay, so we're at item number 3, 36 Hitchcock Way. Okay, we'd like to take a break we're going to adjourn for a few minutes while we await the applicant for item number 3. Thank you.
And I'm the landscape architect. And George Heeson will be here in a second. And he's sort of the overall representative for the YMCA. And this is George Heeson. What's your title, George?
I'm Director of Facilities.
Okay. So this project consists, this is the YMCA, and this is Hope Avenue, and this is Hitchcock Way. And the mountains are up here and the freeway's down that way. And back here, I think in the 1970s, they put 3 tennis courts, asphalt tennis courts in.
Right.
And this project consists of taking these out. You know, not many people are playing tennis anymore, and they're deteriorating, and turning this is an existing lawn with a running track, and just to turn this into a big contiguous lawn is what they'd like to do.
Okay.
So I've got a set of drawings here that shows how these were going to come out. It seemed really simple when we started, but then to break it into a contract that a contractor could work from, we've got a series of 24 sort of instructional items. We wanted to have all the materials recycled, so we'll take all the asphalt to Lash Recycling. There's an existing chain link fence around the whole thing that we will dismantle and save. Construction to recycle, or there's a few programs around that we can take. So we think we're doing a pretty good job of utilizing the materials and recycling them compared to throwing them into a dumpster. And then there's a few existing trees around here that are not to be touched, or there's no trees to be removed. You can see that we've got a temporary tree protection fence. And we've also got to deal with and worry about the members and keeping them safe from the construction. So I've run this orange plastic construction fencing around here, and then even though there's no real trees to deal with here, we run it around so we can protect the trees and protect the people that are using it at the same time. The dump truck is going to come down off of Hitchcock, and there's an existing set of gates here. He'll just come in and do his thing and then come right back out, right down to the freeway, and then over to Lash, the recycling center. And then in terms of another very small aspect of this project is right outside of the building's back door, they're a little bit out of compliance with ADA. So we wanted to hammer out a little bit of concrete and simply make a ramp.
Okay.
That's tiny little. Yeah, I'll show you. Let me go back to this one. So that 24 talks about.
Right here?
Yes.
Okay.
So we can just cut, and there's 4 inches of ramp that needs to be. So we thought we'd put that into this project.
Okay.
And then in terms of planting, you can see this is planting and irrigation on the same sheet, but this would be new lawn. And then we've got some existing irrigation valves over here, and we'll set 4 more, and we'll wet this area down so we'll have a nice big open lawn. And one of the things that the city mentioned in the description of this project is you can't have turf in a commercial environment, but we're asking, I guess, for an exception because this is the YMCA. This is where people come do their sports.
Public Works granted us an exception on that.
Okay.
Okay.
On the landscape
I think they wanted you to
guidelines.
approve that as well. So that's it.
Okay. So I'll
Yeah,
open it
Mr.
for.
Chair, just to add to that real briefly, the reason for the exception is actually, this is pretty much the ideal project that the exception was written in for. And in this case, this is, I think, the first time that we've had this come through, and the process has been that the board can take action on it, but they're just included in the motion that they agree with the exception, and that's going to be an exception that the Public Works will look at in improving, making that final determination.
Okay.
And also, Mr. Chair, I just actually refer back to the applicant as well. This is also a baiting enforcement case, so I'd just like the applicant to address that real quick.
Go ahead, George.
On L2, note 25, there's a statement, and I've inked in this parking lot areas where 3 trees that were previously removed have been reinstalled.
Okay. Thank
We've
you.
already done it.
They're in now.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks. I'll bring it back to the board for questions. Keith?
No questions.
Chris?
So, Chuck, basically, now this is all lawn,
Yes.
right? Was there any thought given to removing this sidewalk so that it's sort of connected and unified?
That's a jogging track.
Uh-huh.
That's a jogging track, and our real desire is to have a play field. So if you were to run that jogging track around that area, it would start to impinge on that.
So
function
it's
of that
meant to
field.
be 2 separate activity areas?
Correct.
Okay. That was all I had for questions.
Okay. Thanks. Paul?
Are there going to be any exterior lights so that at winter time this can be used at 7 or 8 o'clock?
There's existing lighting on the plans. It's noted.
From the tennis court era?
Yeah.
And those are to remain?
Yes.
Okay.
Clean?
No questions.
Okay. I'll bring back the comments. Keith?
More planting, less painting. That's not the light.
It's fine.
Thanks. Chris?
Yeah, and of course the lawn issue, but
Yeah.
it's the YMCA, and good for you. The only additional planting it goes back to questions, but sorry, and this was going to be in this area, so everything else is pretty much remaining as is.
Chuck, didn't you have some
Yeah,
planting on
yeah, I
that
think we
slope?
do.
I think it was ice plant.
Yeah, there's a little bit of existing, it's an ice plant, yeah, Carpet rhodus. And we just want to reestablish that. And then there's a little bit of dietes. So those are existing. So we just wanted to, it's kind of dying out. We wanted just to take cuttings and just make that all into one.
Spruce up.
Yeah. So that was the only thing here.
Okay. Thanks. Paul? Clay?
I'd like to make a motion.
You can go ahead.
I make a motion for. Can we give it final approval today?
I'm good.
Staff says yes.
Yeah.
Staff says yes.
Okay, good. Motion is for final approval for this project as submitted, with the following comment that the ABR agrees with the exception to allow turf in this project.
Great. Second by? Second by Keith. So, under discussion? No? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, so we're on to item number 4.
Okay, thank you.
512 Bath Street.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, we're going to adjourn for a couple of minutes again so that the applicant for item 4 give him time to arrive. Thank you. Sorry? I don't know. Is he on the way?
Stop this world, let me off. There's just too many pigs in the same trough. There's too many buzzards sitting on the fence. Stop this world, it's not making sense. Stop this show, hold the phone. Better days, this girl is known. Better days so long ago. Hold the phone, won't you stop this show? Well, it seems my little playhouse is falling down. I think my little ship has run aground. Feel like I'm in the wrong place. My state of mind is a disgrace. So won't you stop this game? Feel me out. I know too well what it's all about. I know too well that it had to be. Stop this game, well, it's ruining me. Smart for my own good. I just don't do the things I know I should. There's bound to be some better way. I just got one thing more to say, and that is stop this game, deal me out. I know too well what it's all about. I know too well that it had to be. Stop this game, well, it's wrecking me, yeah.
July 26, 2010, and we're on item number 4, 512 Bath Street. And I will just, while you're setting up, I'm going to read the draft Planning Commission resolution notes on the design review section. Project design. The project shall comply with the Mission Creek development restrictions contained in section 2887-250. North elevation, fenestration, and landscaping. Study the fenestration on the north elevation, considering the privacy of the neighboring apartment units and outdoor living spaces in relation to the type, placement, and size of windows and landscaping. 3. Tree replacement. Provide 3 significant specimen trees to replace the removed Shamil ash tree. At least 2 of the trees shall be provided on the project site. If the ABR deems it to be infeasible to locate the 3rd tree on the project site outside of the creek setback area, given site constraints, then the 3rd tree can be placed off-site in the proposed pocket park on the corner of Ortega and Bath Streets. Riparian restoration. The landscape plan shall include a riparian buffer restoration and enhancement plan prepared by a qualified biological or resource specialist and reviewed by the City Environmental Analyst, City Creeks Division, Riparian. The riparian buffer restoration enhancement plan shall also include revegetation restoration, maintenance measures prior to implementation of the Lower Mission Creek Flood Control Project, creek bank stabilization, and revegetation and restoration efforts shall consist of removal of non-native plants and the use of native grasses, shrubs, and trees common to the riparian zones of the city for revegetation. Species that shall be considered, among others, include blackberry, western ragweed, California brome, mugwort, giant ryegrass, deergrass, meadow barley, and quail bush. Minimize visual effects of paving. A textured and/or colored pavement shall be used in paving areas of the project to minimize the visual effect of the expanse of paving, create a pedestrian environment, and provide access for all users. Screen check valve backflow, we have that, shall be provided in a location screened from public view or included in the exterior wall of the building. Perimeter planter. The ABR shall review the required perimeter planter adjacent to the parking area pursuant to the zoning ordinance parking landscaping standards. Building masses and development. All buildings with the exception of the trash enclosure and all creekside hardscape shall be relocated 5 feet closer to Bath Street, away from Mission Creek, thus providing a minimum 10-foot building setback from Bath Street. Setback and biomass. The increased biomass and reduced uncovered parking option as proposed by the applicant at the public hearing, which introduces additional biomass adjacent to the Mission Creek by eliminating 5 uncovered parking spaces closest to Mission Creek and replacing with appropriate creekside vegetation, relocating the covered bicycle parking within Building 7 to the creekside of Building 7, and reducing the creekside hardscape on the creekside of Building 4 is approved. Okay, that's it for the design review portion. And I will just read from our last minutes, and let's see if this is the right ones here. Is this right minutes? Is that 6:40? No. 6:28. And where is... Oh, continued indefinitely to football with comments. The board is not comfortable making a determination for preliminary approval on the proposed project. Applicant to return when the setback issue is resolved and any other unresolved land use issues. Okay. State your name.
Detlev Pikert, Pikert Group Architects.
Lisa Plowman, Pikert Group Architects.
David Black, Landscape Architect.
Mr. Chair, board members, as you're aware, we had a meeting at the Planning Commission. The project was reviewed there. It was appealed, I guess you'd say, up to the Planning Commission to be reviewed. So we're here today seeking preliminary approval, and I'm going to walk you through some of the changes that resulted from the Planning Commission hearing. I might add that there were quite a lot of public testimony at that hearing, and I think anyone who was present at the meeting would see that there was very, very strong public support for the project, and the Planning Commission did approve the project unanimously. So I will go ahead and walk you through some of the changes. We'll flip to the site plan, to sheet 1 here, and then we'll look at the colored landscape plan a little bit later. Most of the discussion at the Planning Commission centered around the riparian zone around the creek and the area, the distance that the buildings are set back from the top of bank, etc. And what we did at that meeting was we showed some of the options that we actually discussed with you at the last meeting, namely to increase the vegetative buffer, riparian buffer from the creek in those areas. We were able to do it by taking out some parking spaces and by reducing some of the outdoor patio areas, etc. And those suggestions and ideas were well received. However, for the Planning Commission to make or to grant an approval of the project, they asked for one more thing that they wanted us to do, and that is to move the whole project, all of these buildings, forward 5 feet towards Bath Street. I'll just mention that originally the design had a 15-foot setback from Bath Street, but as you know, these buildings that are fronting on Bath Street are actually 2-story buildings, and in the case of the middle one, it's really more of a story and a half. And the required setback for 2-story buildings in this zone district is 10 feet. And so at the time we wanted to try to show a little bit greater setback there, and I think that was appreciated. However, the Planning Commission, in its wisdom and decision-making process for this project, deemed that the 10-foot setback was appropriate and adequate, and it did provide 5 additional feet of landscape buffer from the top of the bank at Mission Creek. So what you're seeing here now is a design of a project where the buildings have all been moved forward. We still have a 10-foot setback. There's one minor change that needed to take place, and we had a little bay window there on Building 5, which will need to be removed. And we have a graphic here to show what that looks like. I think that was an effort to just modify that elevation a little bit from one of the previous meetings. However, we're still going to have a little sort of a roof overhang over that window, and include a kind of a decorative flower box sill. And I've got some other little sketches that I can show you to that effect. But I think it's still going to be very attractive there. It's just that that bay window would have encroached into the setback in a manner that would not be acceptable. So
Or would have
without a
required-
modification.
without a modification.
Yeah, and we didn't want to. We
Yeah.
obviously don't have the ability to go through for a mod at this time. So that's really the only sort of significant aesthetic change. One other change, though, that affects one of the elevations in Building 7 here, where we previously had the bicycle parking storage area located over here. We've moved it back into at the end of this Building 7 here, so that we didn't have to deal with cars backing out of the driveway, out of the what were formerly parking spaces there.
And you could get more biomass by doing that.
Exactly. Otherwise, we would have had to make this area a little bit smaller. So those are really the primary changes that differentiate this plan from the plan that you saw previously. I think maybe we can
You wanna look at the
get David to...
landscape?
I'm going to sit over here, David. I can stand up. Can I just
Absolutely.
back up a little bit? The one thing I didn't fail to mention here was that in the process of working this out, we had to kind of rework the access sidewalks and ramps, handicap ramp, handicap access. So it's kind of all centered on this main or this center building here. We kept that building 15 feet back from the property line in order to create as much landscaping in there as possible. That did reduce the courtyard by about 5 feet, but we felt that that was a good compromise in order to make this pedestrian access really work and still maintain some nice landscaping in front of that building there. So I failed to mention that.
This revised plan reflects the changes that Detti just talked about relative to the increased biomass at the east side of the project adjacent to Mission Creek. I think Lisa could probably better speak to some of the direction we were given by Creeks Division and as directed by the restoration report that was prepared for this project, and we have a copy of that report with us. But essentially what it says is, among other things, is that that we would plant predominantly arroyo willows in the area between the existing top-up bank and the area where the improved Lower Mission Creek work would start. There'd be a wall here, which would be the new top-up bank, essentially, and that, and then some 20 to 25 feet back.
Yeah, and then there's another zone. So we have like a 13-foot zone that's going to be all willows that will eventually be removed with the construction, and then we have a 25-foot zone that is between 20 and 25 feet that is kind of a construction area. The county flood control and city public works will have a construction easement along there, so we wanted to minimize the number of significant species that we put in there in terms of size.
Yeah. So
no major trees in that.
Yeah. So
zone,
that being
just
said,
yet.
that's why at least for purposes of this plan, because we don't really know the schedule for the Lower Mission Creek improvement. So we've sort of limited the major tree massings, these are oaks and these are sycamores, back beyond that 20 to 25 foot line. I mean, it will be fully planted, obviously, but rather than be faced with the prospect of having to take out specimen trees down the line, we just don't show trees in this. But I suspect ultimately there will be trees here once the improvements are installed. Again, I would point out that the three large specimen trees that we had talked about at earlier meetings, Tristania conferta here, and then a third California sycamore at this location here. The rest of the plan is not unlike what we've shown in the past. The major change, obviously, besides the inch area that he talked about, is the increased habitat and biomass at this location here.
Okay, is that it?
Just to conclude our portion of the presentation, I just had a sheet here that shows kind of just our intent with respect to finishes and colors for the buildings. So we got kind of a shingle siding product, stucco, bronze anodized aluminum windows, etc. And then I've got just a little overlay sketch just to show how we've kind of compensated for that bay window there at the front of building. The building number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else to add?
I don't think so. I mean, we do have the restoration plan here that David's landscape plan is attached to, and I know that staff has reviewed it, and they are in agreement that it's acceptable. So both Creek staff and the environmental analyst reviewed it. And you can keep that copy if you want, Chris.
Do you have any, just looking at the Planning Commission's list here on number 7, the perimeter planting, the Planning Commission wanted us to review this particular area in here. You have any elaboration on that area? because they call it out here as particular. The
Can you read
ABR
that
shall
again?
review the required perimeter planting adjacent to that parking area.
I don't know what they were thinking when they made that. If it's a condition or a suggestion.
Was it just a comment?
Mr. Chair, this condition carried over from the staff hearing officer hearing. And I believe ABR looked at the perimeter planners at the first hearing, but the requirement under the ordinance is a 5-foot landscape buffer, or if the ABR approves a reduced buffer if there's an equivalent effect of landscaping along the property line.
Oh, and this is reduced down to, is it 3?
3
or
feet.
3? Okay, and this here looks further reduced. This little piece in here. This one looks
That's the
further
handy.
up.
That's where the handicap parking is there.
Oh, so that
they have to
comes
be
in
a
a
little bit
further-
longer. Yeah.
You can see the dimensions here.
Oh, so it's
like it's only 3 feet
at the handicap.
Oh, behind the, yeah, it's actually looks like more like 4 feet for the
Okay.
remainder of it.
All right. Okay. So I'd like to, it's a public comment, open it up for public comment.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do have a letter that we'd like to acknowledge from Ms. Paula Westbury.
Okay, great. No speaker slips. Bring back the board for questions. Keith?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Just to go through the rest of the Planning Commission comments, so we kind of crossed all our T's and all that. Screening of the backflow preventer.
Yes, that's done, and there's a note to that effect on the plan.
And then I assume the screening on the north side for the neighbor's privacy is similar to what we talked about last time with those vertical tree masses. Okay. And then the last thing is if you could just comment on the use of color in the paving, just so we've hit that item.
Yeah, we'll be using a permeable paver for the center portion of the driveway here, as you can see depicted in the landscape plan here.
So that'll have some sort of integral.
Yes.
No more questions, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Chris?
And the outer portions of that, is that concrete colored to match, or is it
No, we
plain?
haven't really specified that yet, but
Okay.
you know, likely it will be either concrete or could be AC.
Okay. I think the only question I had was regarding the creek area where the recreation room is. Sounds like the Planning Commission had you reduce that patio. Was that a requirement? I'm just thinking that would be a nice place to go out and sit.
Well, we'll still have some patio area out here, only it's not going to be as wide as it was before.
Right.
And that was just part of the trade-off to try to get more of that riparian vegetation into that area. So there'll be this patio, you know, on the side here, and then there'll be, I think it's about 5 or 6 feet there in front of the doors to the
Okay. But
recreation.
there's no more opportunity anymore to sort of put any tables or chairs out there. It's now just sort of walking area alongside the building itself.
I guess that can be explored, you know, whether there's some opportunity to put a bench or something out there. Some
Yeah, we have to discuss that with Creeks Division to find out whether there's really any opportunities that they wouldn't feel is sort of an encroachment on the
Right.
biomass, as it were.
Okay.
But we'd be happy to look at that.
Okay. That's my question.
Thanks, Chris. Paul? No. Clay? So my one thought is that if this is interlocking pavers and this becomes asphalt, because this is it's like going down in grade and that's the pedestrian walkway. I mean, I would prefer that the pedestrian not be walking on asphalt while the middle of this is interlocking pavers. So if you could give that some consideration, and I'd prefer not to see asphalt as the walking surface. If that
I think it will likely be concrete.
No asphalt. No asphalt.
I think it'd be difficult to do that in anything other than concrete.
some sort of
so-
colored concrete or something.
Yes.
Okay. I think I'm good for my questions. Walk to the board for comments. Keith?
Mr. Chair, I thought last time we were ready for preliminary. I think the applicants responded positively to the Planning Commission conditions, so I think it's ready for preliminary.
Thanks. Chris?
I agree. I think the additional green space in the southeast corner is nice, but I would like to see us get some more of this an opportunity here once you talk to Creeks to see if they're able to let you get some sort of seating out there on the eastern side of the recreation room. So you're able to interact with that biomass.
I agree.
Thanks, Chris. Paul?
I would agree with what Chris just said about the outside the recreation area. That's a good use. This is how the site will be used. I'm also glad the applicant didn't push this community center building 10 feet away and kept that 15 feet. It sacrificed a little bit of the courtyard, but that relief at the street will be nice.
Okay, thanks. Clay?
Nothing new to add.
I think that I'm happy. I think all the changes that you've made from the comments of Planning Commission, I think were well done. I agree with keeping that back. That really helps at least not make this line one continuous line going all the way through. That helped a lot. I think you have a huge amount of biomass now, so I really agree with Chris that if anything could be done to get some sort of area out there for them to use, that would be great. I think, right now the project is in a good place, and I think the colors are very, very nicely done in here. I like this color scheme and what you've done with this one. So I'm ready to give it preliminary approval if somebody would make a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion. So this would be preliminary approval with the following comments. The board makes the waiver for the 5-foot landscape buffer across the parking area, considering that the exception only occurs in a small area, and we have ample landscape the rest of the project to compensate. Study the possibility of additional seating opportunities outside the recreation room within the limits of the creek restrictions, and use integral colored concrete at the pedestrian paths along the edges of the parking area.
All right. Do I have a second? Second by Clay. Under discussion, any? No? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. There you go.
Yeah, back to full board.
So are we taking a recess now?
No, we have our next item here.
All right, let's go. So this brings us to item number 5, 130 North, Calle Cesar Chavez. Yeah. Hey, Jill, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks.
This is continued 2 weeks, so we have plans.
I brought 3 to spread them out.
This was the concept last time.
So I'll just read the minutes from the last continued 2 weeks to full board with comments. Provide drawings of all proposed additional elements such as HVAC screens, trash enclosures, electrical enclosures, etc. Provide color and materials for the proposed painting and ramp elements. Provide a replacement for the removed tree. Provide a streetscape view of the street frontage along Calle Cesar Chavez. Study the new accessible ramp at the deli and the interface with the existing deck for a more appropriate solution. Provide a proposed lighting plan with a cut sheet of the proposed fixtures. Provide a cut sheet on the proposed bike racks. Okay.
My name is Joseph Matusha. I'm the architect for the project. To my left is the owner, Ken James.
Okay.
And Roy Hawthorne to my right, consultant. I'll just take them in the order that I just kind of solved the list on the that you just read off.
Okay.
Just take lighting first.
And maybe just for me, since I was not here the last
Okay.
time, if you could just very quickly just go over what the project is about.
This is legal
Yeah.
legal site plan. This is proposed site plan.
Okay.
And the buildings in shaded are the buildings that are in question.
Mhm.
Some of them are as-built. Some of them are going to be new or
Mhm.
as-built, but we would like to retain them. They're
Okay.
all going to be as-built, basically.
Okay.
And you're looking at the exterior of things on the whole development, basically. And the presentation we made last week, we're outlining all the things that you looked at as a board.
Mhm.
And the comments are
Okay.
things that we would like to, that we
Okay.
brought back.
A lot of as-built stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything is as built.
Okay.
Except there's a couple ramps here and here.
Yes.
Handicap ramps, and this is the one that's in question there, that are totally new, that are not as built.
Okay.
And there's a very extensive scope of work, which is very detailed.
Okay.
Driving all 22 items.
And if I could interject that the bulk of the site plan and the buildings there are legal. There are certain elements that are subject to an enforcement case that's the third of 3 enforcement cases over the last 15 or 20 years, and they've sort of sequentially, gotten more detailed, and now we're down to some real brass tacks here.
Okay. Thank you. Is this a track still, or what's
Freeway.
Freeway?
Freeway right there.
All right. Oh, okay. I got it.
Marburg, tall building right here. And,
I see. Okay.
Right there.
Right.
South Sequoia is here. Freeway here. Bridge underneath there.
This South Sequoia, this says North Calais.
North Calais.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Bedrock right here.
Okay.
Bedrock.
Oh, okay.
It's the 101 Deli somewhere right in here.
Correct.
Yes.
All right, I got it.
Which is, I have a streetscape of the whole.
Yeah, I got it now. Right. I have the overpass right there.
Mr. Chair, for the benefit of you and Chris, who both weren't here last time.
Yep.
I was here.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, though.
They have a series of enforcement cases that they're cleaning up.
Yep.
And the general feeling of the board the last time we saw this was that most of the items were inconsequential. There were a few areas that we picked out being lighting, some trash enclosure information, and really what the board was most concerned. I mean, you couldn't design the craziness that this building is in general. I mean, it's been added on. Right. So the one area that we were most interested in is what's happening where this property hits the street. So the 101 Deli, the buildings in the front, which is really the public access. Most of the issues that they're cleaning up are well within the building. Half of them you don't see from the street, if not more than half.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Thanks for that. That helps. Okay, Joe. Take it away.
Okay. Lighting. I think Don Sherry 2 weeks ago expressed some ideas on it was in the comments. What I've done is just stated on the drawings how we're going to clean up the lighting, what we're going to do for the lighting.
Okay.
We're changing most of the bulbs out to fluorescent. We're changing some of the sodium.
Replacing the high pressure sodium.
High pressure sodium. We're changing 4 of them. They are high pressure, but they're shining out, and we're putting
cutoffs. Okay.
Cutoffs on them. And I brought some cut sheets for the
cutoff versions.
Cutoff ones, and then we're replacing 2 here. The greater number of light fixtures on the whole development are security sensor activated, only last for 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes at most, and 2 of them that are at these locations here with the dots, the dark dots, we're changing to some sodium, high-pressure sodium lights, basically, and to light this. That they're up high right now, and we would like to leave them up high to light this storage area. This area is used for
Materials.
as bedrock for storage.
Okay.
And the lights do not shine towards the street, the freeway. They shine this way onto the property,
Okay.
and there's no night life at it. They will shine down because there are guards on them.
Right. Okay. Good.
Let's put this aside of that. Ramps. Let's go to the ramp. In fact, before we go to the ramp, let's go to the. I did a streetscape showing what's happening. I'm just trying to get it in the right order. This is the end. Yeah. Goes on top of that one. Yeah, I think.
Okay.
This is, I did the total property. Right now, we're only concerned with 130 North Cali Cesar Chavez, which starts right here, or right in the middle of this gate, and goes this way.
Right.
The property over here is also owned by Ken James, but it's not in this
Project.
right now. In fact, it already has been solved. So we're looking at basically warehouse here, design studio warehouse here, 101 deli here, entrance number 3 here, an electrical building right here, name of the electric, yeah. Then entry number 2 and entry number 1 with another commercial building right here. And so basically you're looking at this area, which is very, in my opinion, fits very nice because of all the landscaping and the color. Everything is basically the same all the way down, and the gates. In the past, the gates have been changed to wrought iron fences, so the fences meet, match.
Right.
And what we're doing is putting a ramp, a handicap ramp right here. And what we're going to do is match this ramp with the ramp that we put in here about 5 years ago. There's a ramp right here that is almost exactly going to be the exact same ramp, only this one slopes. And I have, over the past 2 weeks, extensively tried to get. Reason it's going the way it is we have 21 inches of height to go from the sidewalk to the floor of that unit, of that deli. And to get 21 feet in there, it's the only way. We can't zigzag. It's the only way that we can get up that 21 inches. It gives us the most length in ramp to get up that 21 inches. And we even tried out, one of you, I think it was you, thought about putting the ramp or the door in that side door. Here again does not give us the 21 feet to get into that door. 21 feet hits the center of that door, which is right here. If you look at page 2, you'll.
You're coming this way and going this way?
Let's look at page 2 there, and you'll see how that ramp now comes up.
Ooh.
And you'll see the difference in the ramp. See, the ramp right here is, we're going to match these two ramps.
You kind of see it better on 12.
Yeah, on 12. Here's the front of the cafe right here. Is the deck and the trellis over the deck. And right now there is a gate right here, and nothing. The gate just comes out to the driveway right here. But the gate is right here. Here's the gate, that entrance right here. And there's a pedestrian gate right here that's existing. And what we're going to do is just bring the ramp down. And the reason we're coming from this way and this way is because we have a proposed handicap over here. And that's the only place they would allow us to put that proposed handicap and the travel across the driveway right here. So we have to come down here, we have to come back up here, and we have to meet at a transition and go into the building. And like I said, the 21 inches after we climb, 21 inches hits right about here, which is almost past the door. So we came up here to a level area and then came up here to the existing patio or open front deck. Can't do it with switchbacks. There's just not enough room to get that.
Yeah.
We ran in when we put the one over here. Sorry, it's not on here. So it's right here.
Yeah.
We ran into the same problem. We had to come up. That's where we had to come up right there because we couldn't get it anywhere else.
Okay, let's just keep going through.
Hang on just for a second. Okay. Trees. Let's go to trees. There was some mention on This is the existing landscape layout. Was done by Arcadia Studios in 2000, I think it was. We got permission to use this again. They were asked us to put what was legally legal put on the property. That's what is there. What's there. Then I did another one with what we're proposing. 2 weeks ago, I came in with the fact that we were going to eliminate this tree. Since then, I've talked with Ken James, the owner, and it seems that tree was moved right to there.
It was planted in that location, not moved as an existing tree.
Pardon?
It was planted there, not
Moved as an existing tree.
It was moved as an existing
I had a
tree.
big container, and I
It
just
sits-
picked the container up and moved the container over there,
This one,
like a sewer,
Yeah.
big sewer drain.
Okay, so it was moved.
we actually moved.
All right.
We actually, and it is now in that location.
Okay.
And then we've already ready to put 2 more trees in, which are the 2 trees. One here. We're relocating this one and relocating this one, which this tree is gone, and we're going to plant another tree there. And this one is gone, and we're going to plant another tree there. And we've since found another tree that's sitting right here. Extra tree that wasn't called for, so we have an extra tree there that wasn't called for on the plans.
And that sits there now.
That sits there now, and it was not on the original plan.
Okay.
So that's where we are right now.
Okay.
Trash enclosures. 2 weeks ago, I had come up with 3 enclosures for the 3 trash areas proposed. The existing, right now, trash locations are here, just 2. One here and one here. We are going to retain those locations here, and we're going to add another one here. We'll put an enclosure around, and I'll go to proposed here. Because it is concrete block there, we're going to put a concrete block sides on it with a fence in front, fence doors in front. I have a picture. I'll show you elevations.
So that's up and around, right?
Yeah. They'll just open it and pull it right out, and the truck will go right here. We retained this area. It used to be some buildings that were torn down, and we are now putting, for the handicap, we're putting a handicap parking space right there with another parking space there, and what's left over we're using for a trash enclosure. And because there's fences all in the area, I propose just to fence that with a 6-foot high fence, with a 6-foot gate right here that allows the trash to be pulled out and the truck comes in, which it usually does. And then we're proposing one back here, and what we're doing here is just a location, not an enclosure. What we're doing is we're totally enclosed here with fences. We're on the freeway side, we're blocked by the buildings, and nobody will ever see it, and it's already totally concrete. That whole thing is concrete, so we're just proposing a location for a trash right there. And I don't remember where. Yeah. Okay. Here's the trash enclosure for the first one I mentioned, with the concrete block on the sides and the gate in the front. The trash enclosure for the second one is right here, and here's the 6-foot gate and the side of it looking from the handicap parking space.
Oh, I see.
If we're
Okay.
standing in the handicap parking space, we're looking at the side of that fence, and if we're standing out in the driveway, the street is out here.
So you access this from the side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is enough room in both enclosures to get recyclable and trash, which is required now.
Okay.
Okay. Air conditioning screening. Since I'm on that page, we'll go to that one next. Previous drawings showed this is the air conditioner unit on a platform here. These 3 elevations here. It is located right here.
Yeah.
The previous drawing showed it on a ground platform right here. We have since decided to move it. It is not hooked up. It's just sitting there with some ducts joined to the roof. We're going to put it on a platform and set it up 6 foot off the ground on a steel-built platform, and then screen it with plywood and trim it out the same way this whole building is trimmed out. The same way this is trimmed out, the same way this is trimmed out, or the 101 Cafe right here. We'll trim it out with 1x3 trim, a different color and you're looking at what I post-shade here is the side of what you'll look at, and I just kind of dotted in what the unit looks like behind each unit. This is again looking at it from the handicap parking space in the back. This is looking at it from the south elevation, which would be from here.
And what was the logic to raise it in the air? Why?
2 reasons. One, it got it out of the way and got it up, and 2, it gave us space to what we're using. This is some storage for the electrical right here, and it got it up off the ground.
There's some shallow flooding in the area as well.
Yeah, if we didn't put it up, we'd have to put it up anyway, and we just put it up 6 foot instead of putting it up about 3 feet, over 3 feet high in the ground.
Okay, and why wouldn't it be beneficial to just keep it at 3 feet off the ground?
Then we'd have a much bigger screening area, much bigger area to screen. We could lower it down this point.
Okay, all right, good. All right, go ahead.
Street pictures. I've showed you the street pictures already. Color samples. Here's the colors of buildings right now. Basically, this is all the buildings are in this color, and all the trim is in this color, and it's also will also be the railings for the handicap. Here's basically colors. Here's the handrail that's down right here. showing what's going to happen there. That.
Okay.
Meter, oh yeah, we were asked to make sure that all the electrical and mechanical was above the floodplain. There's a height that we were required to be there. And that electrical is behind building number 2 right here, which is right here. And we proposed a concrete masonry unit, little house around it that's 30 inches high with a waterproof door on it that keeps the water out if we flood this area, if this area floods. And I can remember where I put it. Page 5, upper right-hand corner. Shows the electrical box there, and with the elevation in front, standing in front of it, and then each side view of the masonry unit.
The platform.
Pardon?
The platform that it sits on top of.
No. It sits. The block sits on the ground. It sits on a
plinth,
on slab. We'll probably cut the slab and set the blocks down an inch or so, and then just build up. And what it forms is a block for flood that comes. If a flood comes through there, it won't damage. It won't damage the electrical boxes that are in it.
So you're not actually moving the boxes, you're building a waterproof bathtub around it.
Thing around it.
Flood-proof.
Yeah, here you go. Flood-proofing that.
Oh, I see. So you leave it in
So we're just coming out around the back and flood-proofing them. It's the only electrical and the only mechanical that's down below the floodplain.
Okay.
And bike racks. We proposed 4 bike racks, 2 apiece, 2 bikes in each location. One here, one there, if I can remember where they are. One here, 1, 2, 3.
Okay. It's 4 bike racks.
2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
2 bikes per rack, as required in code based on the parking.
And these are the ones that's just
Yeah, we're just going to put it
with this
with a ring
like
on
that.
it.
Okay.
And I think I've covered everything.
Okay. So, do we have public comment, Michelle? Or-
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do have a letter from Ms. Paula Westbury. I'd like to acknowledge to the board.
Okay, thanks. And I'll bring back to the board for questions. First?
Can you sort of pinpoint which lights we remain on all the time?
Okay, the ones that remain on are 4.
Okay.
They are the ones with the dot with a circle around it.
Okay.
There's one next to building 32. There's one next to building 22. There's one next to building 16, and there's one in the back of 17.
Okay.
Those are the 4 that remain on all the time.
Okay. The rest are censored.
Rest are censored, or porch, just turn off and on porch lights. There's 6 of those.
Gotcha. Now, can we go to the landscape plan? I'm curious about the relocated trees. Which were relocated and which are proposed to be relocated?
Okay. There's 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be relocated. It is relocated. It is existing right now there. It was moved when we got permitted, these canopies.
It's already been relocated.
Already relocated. This one is right now, is located right here. And when we put these ramps in, we will, it's not a big tree. In fact, it's not, haven't got much bigger than a bush now.
Yeah.
And we'll dig it up and put it in the planter.
So we don't know what type of tree
No.
they are, because if it's surrounded by concrete, you can't really relocate a tree like that.
Let's see if it's on here. Yeah, it was right here. It was already there.
Yeah, that's kind of my main concern, depending on how big and old it is. If it's kind of in a planter.
It's been there for years.
Okay, so it's going to be,
got any
you
bigger.
probably won't, so I'm going to suggest that you plant new ones, basically.
That was two,
because
you said there was a total of 4?
4.
Yeah.
One here, when we took these buildings out, that tree came out.
Okay.
I can't say why, it just did, and that was last year.
Happens.
We were going to take that tree, which was there, it's not there anymore, and we're going to plant another one right there.
Okay, so that'll be new.
That'll be new.
This one's already been moved. That one hasn't done anything.
Yeah. And this one here, when this building was put in right here, there was a building here without a permit. That tree was removed. We have since got a demolition permit to remove that building, and there is no tree there, and we will move that tree, we will take that tree and put it over there.
So that'll be a new tree.
New
also.
tree. New tree, new tree.
Okay.
Those 4.
All right, I'm sorry, and then
Excuse
one...
me, if I can just tag on to his questions, because mine, we don't know what size tree that you're going to be planting. If you're putting a new tree, can we come up with a number of how big this tree is going
We
to be?
have bought the trees already. What are they called?
Type?
24-inch box, 24-inch box,
Cool.
about 8 feet tall.
All right, and you bought 2 of them?
Two trees.
Two of them.
Which is that one
Here,
and that
here.
one?
One here and here.
Okay.
I bought 2 Brazilian peppers.
Sorry about that.
That's right. That's right.
Brazilian pepper 24-inch box.
Brazilian pepper. Okay. All right, let's go to page 12. The other question is, my main concern on this project is that ramp. And you said basically if you were to go straight without the angle, you would end up beyond the existing door?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And did you consider...
Not beyond. In the middle.
Somewhere in the middle
right
of
there.
it.
But then we have to have flat area and the door.
I'm sorry, could you finish that thought? Flat area?
Once we hit the 21 feet of ramp, then we need 6 feet of
I see.
level area.
So then your level area would be...
Way back in
So you
here,
end up
yeah.
getting into that. Okay, I was just wondering if you could move the door over a little bit and accommodate that. But
Then we would be in the way of, things get in the way, then we would be in the way of an existing gate that is there.
Right.
That we were going to retain. And all we're going to do is cut the bottom of that gate. And we can retain it. Because all the poles and columns are everything, right? That is that existing gate for the drive-through right there.
Right, right.
And everything is right there, and it just happens to be 5'3" to the outside. Yeah, 5'3" to the outside of that pole.
And that's your requirement for the landing?
No, yeah, it gives it, yeah.
Would be.
Would
Okay.
be.
Okay, that's my questions.
So the only reason why this is bent here is a dimension from here to here?
No.
I
There's
mean-
2 reasons why it's bent. One, it's bent because sidewalk is right here, and the approach to the driveway is right there.
The curb cut?
It's off-centered, yeah, the curb cut. It's off-center. It happens to be, if you take,
So you're avoiding the apron.
yeah, avoiding the apron, and the driveway goes that way until it hits the fence, and then it straightens out. Goes like this, and then goes like this.
Okay, so if this is the pans, the pan starts here, like a triangle is right here?
Yeah, almost.
It's the straight portion here, and then this is a pan, like a little...
No.
triangle.
The driveway comes all the way over there. In fact, it's almost over to
You can
there.
actually see on this plan.
Yeah, see there.
There's the apron.
Oh, I see.
See?
Okay.
It just we thought about, well, let's move it over, but there's a telephone pole
I see.
right there. And here you can see that telephone pole?
I see. Okay.
And is that your minimum opening requirement for the
It's more
driveway?
It's more. Yeah, it's more than 20 feet.
So feasibly,
You could make
you
it
could
short, Nick.
reduce that.
Could
Right.
reduce that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And in fact, that's, I don't know, let's see what it is. It has to be 20 feet, so we're looking at 1 inch. 1 feet. Yeah, we could, in essence, we could bring it over, and but we'd still
have that length
still
issue.
have we wouldn't hit that. We could
It
could
wouldn't be
close off.
straight. Yeah, it wouldn't be straight.
Still wouldn't be straight.
Yeah,
Be closer, but yeah.
be closer, not straight. Okay, let's go into.
I have a question or comment. Question. You have these squares that were the street tree located both on your site plan and on the landscape plan. Were those required trees?
Yes.
Okay.
And one of them is missing because
Correct. This one's
this
missing.
one's missing because there's a sewer right underneath it.
So it was never planted. So
It
it's
was
not
never
required.
I cut it open and there was a sewer underneath it. There was no dirt. I mean, the water comes from the back.
Oh,
It
okay.
comes underneath the building and it comes out there.
I don't disagree with you, but if that's the case, then that should get erased. So because I'm counting the number of circles and I'm looking for the number of
Right.
sticks, and it didn't add up.
Yeah.
So that needs to
that
get
one
corrected.
is missing right there.
Okay.
Which
but that's
is,
a valid reason.
Yeah.
But that's what I was noticing.
I think
That's my only question.
yeah, it's right there. It's
Okay.
right at the back of that car right there.
Questions, Clay? I really don't have any questions. Comments?
I guess the only comments would be in terms of the relocated trees that you planted new, and it sounds like you're doing that for at least 2 of the 3. So you might be adding 1 additional instead of trying to relocate a shrub that's not going anywhere. So, yeah, instead of relocating that one. And then I'm just still having trouble with the ramp. I think it's just going to look really awkward with that angle. If you reduced the apron, you could have less of an angle. Is that right?
Let me make a comment. 2 reasons why I made it angled.
Right.
One, it fit right there, and it was away from the approach.
Yep.
The other reason is
the length.
The length. What it did is it gave us a couple more inches, just a couple inches in the length here. But what it did is gave us length here.
Mm-hmm.
So now we could straighten it out, but we'd have to straighten it this way to retain this. What I had before, I had it coming up straight up into and coming right to there.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't give us enough height to get up. And we obtained more length in the ramp by moving this end over, which was my basic reason for moving it. And then all of a sudden I said, and then it fits the approach of the driveway.
Okay.
So it kind of fit in.
It's an unfortunate
If we straighten it, yes, we could put it over here, and still we might lose a couple inches because we have more inches in the angle.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost exactly 21 feet.
Okay. I'll just see if anyone else has any comments on that, but I just think it'll look awkward.
I'm not going to lose too much sleep over the 101 deli area. I would just say on the plans, clearly need to note what the 2 replacement trees are, which is a 24-inch box, Brazilian pepper, and then I would recommend or strongly encourage or require that the other tree that's a shrub be also a replacement tree and not worry about trying to relocate it if it doesn't look very healthy. The third item would be to remove the street tree that was on the previous landscape plan off the plans because there was that sewer pipe in the way. And if staff is not okay with that, then staff will require you to relocate one somewhere else on either side of that pipe.
Okay.
Because I don't know why you were required to put those 4 street trees in. I just noticed that all 4 are not in place.
Clear?
Mr. Chair, I'll just respond to a couple items. I think the ramp it's just not a very good solution, but it doesn't look like there is any others. I think the tree issues need to be clearly noted on the plans, and I think the lighting. Do we see cut sheets on the lighting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just one of these areas of town and one of these properties that just has a lot of weird things going on. I think it's just going to continue that way for a while. But I'm fine with the way it's being presented.
Okay. Yeah, I think for me it's unfortunate about the turn. I think in the end, because of this location and the fact that it isn't rising that much up in the air, I think that with appropriate landscaping in here, because you're taking out that ficus that's right there.
It'll stay.
Oh, that green will stay right here?
Yeah, that ficus sits right about there.
Oh, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So,
It'll stay.
yeah, so I'm thinking that, the angle is not going to be too bad. It's just unfortunate, but there's nowhere else to maneuver. And so I'm all right with it in this particular kind of program that you guys have going on here. Okay. I'm all right.
Mr. Chair, I'll float a motion.
Yep.
And it's going to be for preliminary approval with final on consent with the following. Oops.
Mr. Chair, this item still needs environmental review, and it will need to come back to full board after environmental review for the DPA findings. So they cannot grant an approval today. You have to forward.
What is this environmental?
It's a letter I sent you about a month or so ago, a few months ago. We can discuss that after.
And what was the DPA something or other? What was that?
Well, that's the development plan approval findings, and that needs to be made by the full board. So once they complete their environmental review, then it needs to come back for full board for approval with the development plan approval findings made by the full board.
Then I'll make a motion for an indefinite continuance back to full board with the following comments: that the applicant clearly note on the plan what the replacement trees are, the applicant provide a third replacement tree next to whatever that building is. Building 17, is it right here?
Mm-hmm.
So 28? That landscape plan, I'm sorry. Was it this one that was getting moved?
This is the one we're moving.
Yeah, how do I note that in the minutes?
That's 28.
Okay. Applicant shall provide a new replacement tree at building 28 instead of relocating the existing plant. The applicant to remove the street tree where the existing sewer pipe prevented its installation or find an alternate location. And
remove street tree from the plans.
remove the street tree from the plans. Good word.
Okay.
And other than that, that's all I have for the motion.
Hey. Do we have
Got it on tape.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Chris. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Good. Motion carries. Okay. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
So it looks like you just have to come back and do some administrative.
Can we get a permit in the meantime?
Are we taking our...
Well, our next item is here, and it should be a rather quick one. We want to proceed.
Okay.
We're still
It's
waiting.
longer than that. You've got some paperwork to deal with. Some
The
letter.
last
I don't have
item,
that
we'll
letter.
take
I don't
one
know.
longer break if necessary.
Okay, you
Okay.
get to keep that stuff, I think.
Let's go. So we're on item number... Chop. We're on
hang on to that
item
one.
number 6.
Yeah.
224 Mitchell Torrena Street. Okay, Alex. Alex.
I have 3 plans, maybe
I'll take that.
okay, great.
2 weeks ago.
So I'm Alex Pouchot, the architect for this project. It's a small addition to
one residence in a site that has two one-story buildings. And we saw this last week, the last meeting. These are the existing conditions. These are the two houses. And this is storage building. And we're proposing a small addition on this one right here. These are the existing conditions, the existing 228 residents. And this is the proposed plan. This place right here. And this is
the second story addition?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is the proposed elevations. And we had the comments last week was to study a different siding material and to restudy the windows.
Okay,
and I did that. I used, after much searching, I thought that the best thing to do is to match the shingles that are existing at the dormers. And if we look at the photos of the existing, right, so we have, and in the other house also they have shingles on the dormers. So it seems like the appropriate thing to do. And as far as the windows, I'm going with a wood, like Colby and Colby with the true divided lights. And that's what I think that was requested.
So study materiality and use of siding on the upper floor addition, and study the window proportion and detailing.
That's it.
And compatibility findings could not be made at this time. Okay. All right. Okay. Just quickly, any reason why this scale of this siding is so much different to what's on the dormer? The computer.
It's
put in the wrong scale, or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Most likely.
All right. Okay.
It's not intended to be any different, really.
Okay. So do we have any no speaker slips? Any?
We just have a letter from Miss Paula Westbury.
Thanks, Chris. Questions?
Yeah. That's you can see right there.
I have no questions.
Paul? Clay? No questions? I don't have any questions either. This is pretty far back from the front here, right?
Right, yeah. It's, if you see it from here, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, and this quick West Machuto, and that's this building. So this one is already in place.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
we had some historic elements, and I talked to Jake Jacobus, and he said that, there's some significance, and it's given mainly by these windows in the front. And the front of these buildings, the back of the building has already been lost some of its integrity, so that's what led us to this layout. Now, I do need a modification because of the existing conditions. The existing two residences are closer than they're supposed to be, I guess.
Right.
And the fact that I am adding something to the second story technically aggravates that. And you, I think the board has made some comments to that respect last time.
Yeah, the board said the requested modification has no aesthetic impact on the project. Okay, so on the comments, Chris?
So, I guess on the north and west elevation, and in the plan, that's basically showing windows at the stairwell for that area.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess to me that seemed like a little bit of a contemporary move to sort of shove them into the corner a little bit. Didn't really see that anywhere else in the house, but I'll kind of leave that up to the architects. That was just an observation.
Okay. Paul?
Question for staff.
This project has to go to the staff hearing officer. Can it go to preliminary and final on consent, or does it need to come back to full board?
No, it can continue to consent if you'd like, if you feel it's ready.
All right.
That's my only
Clay?
Mr. Chair, I understand Chris's comment. I don't personally don't have a real issue with it. I think the project has a lot of quirky little details and that's another one. But I think it's fine. I'm fine to make a motion unless you have something, Chris.
No.
We'll make a motion for indefinite continuance on the staff hearing officer to return back to consent calendar for preliminary and final approval. And we can make, I'll just reiterate that the mod poses no aesthetic impacts on the project, and the compatibility findings can be made.
Great. Thanks.
All
Do I
six
have a
of them,
second?
whatever they are. All 6 of them.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Paul. Great. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, it was quick. Okay, number 7.
Yes. So we'll take our break first. And then we'll
Number 7?
Okay, we are going to adjourn for a couple of minutes and we'll be back in 15-20 minutes.
We're on a break. What do you got? Previous motion, but add to it making the development plan findings, and then this would be for preliminary approval with final on consent.
Great. And a second by? Second by Clay. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. There you go. Preliminary. You're welcome. Okay, and that brings us to the last item of the evening. Item number 7, 136 South Hope Avenue, B10. Hi. Hi, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
So we're looking at Crancom Communications Inc. Where?
General nutrition. Correct?
Okay. Oh.
Is this mic's not on at all?
Oh, GNC.
I'm
Name for the record?
I'm Tim Ball with Macerich, the property manager.
And I'm Scott Davis with Permits Today.
Okay. Please proceed with your presentation.
I think we're here to discuss really a couple issues. One is dealing with the air conditioning unit on the rooftop and the concealment using the parapet of that rooftop unit. And there is an existing rooftop unit already located on the building. We are planning to switch it out for a more smaller and more efficient unit itself. It is concealed by the parapet
And then also, of course, we're looking at the storefront elevation, and then some landlord work that will happen as well.
Yes.
Okay.
And I also want to note that there is, I think on page A2, there is a detail for signage. Signage will be a separate unit, and that will be, or separate permit application for that. So that will, it's not part of the approval. Yes.
So show us the air conditioning proposal.
So we're looking, first of all, on page. Oh, you want to look at the demolition first?
You could do it whatever order you'd like, but you started off with air conditioning, so.
Okay. So, one of the things that we wanted to talk about was the elevation on page A2.
Storefront elevation.
And what we're trying to do is matching with the existing structure.
Is that this one or this one?
Actually, it's this one here.
Oh.
And
do you have? Oh, it has more. Okay, here we go.
There you go.
Okay.
And so, keeping with the design of the building, we are matching it to.
Okay, there's a little more to it than that, actually. I think you're all familiar with we'll call it the canopy that cantilevers over. This structure here. We are going to, the landlord are going to be removing that section of canopy. We're kind of working on an overall remodel of the center, as you know. It's been kind of, a couple of false starts. But so basically what we did is we worked with the GNC architect to develop something that would fit in with an overall plan. And of course, their storefront's only 15 feet. And the approach we're taking right now is that we're going to work on it as a tenant-by-tenant basis. Primarily, a couple of reasons, but for instance, with Pottery Barn, we went to them and discussed doing, a remodel on their facade, but they wanted to have input, and they wanted to have their design architect involved on the facade. So what we're doing now is we're taking a different approach. We're going to continue on a tenant-by-tenant basis. But we did want to incorporate their facade and adapt it to what we plan in the future. This right here is kind of a preliminary proposal or elevation. This is the Love Culture that's just about completed, and this is the GNC section. This is Outfitters, which is not up for a remodel right now, but we're coming up with some ideas right now. And this is Claire, and then Wetsteel's over here. But so what we are going to do, and this is kind of what we worked with the architect, is to remove the canopy. So this will be a continuous parapet back at the lease line storefront elevation. Right, and so then that'll be removed at the Outfitter lease line, and we're going to do that as part of the work. And then work with the GNC contractor and them developing their new storefront. And it's more of the Spanish vernacular vocabulary through here.
And this comes forward here, right? This face.
Yes, this comes
from
out.
The Love Culture.
Yeah. Love Culture plan.
Yeah, that's the one with the glass dome on top. The glass tiles up
Glass
there.
tiles, right.
And that's the different colors, very modern. I would have been right up your alley.
It's coming out nice. I don't know if you've had a chance to go by there, but
yeah,
it's just about done.
Okay, so, all right. You want to go ahead with the rest of the presentation? Is that the air conditioning and just that? And do we have a rail component to this? Does this go right through?
Actually, it doesn't. It doesn't go. Let me show you the floor plan so you can see that. It doesn't. However, as part of our our desire to kind of continue that rear elevation, kind of what we've done at Love Culture. This is the ladder to the roof, and I think a fire sprinkler vestibule, and it's an exit for Love Culture and an exit for GNC, the rear exit. So what we want to do, I just brought a couple of kind of existing rear elevation here, which is how it looked. This is the GNC portion from about here to here. Okay. This is progress of what you approved, I think, several months ago, and it's just about done. This is actually taken a couple of weeks ago, I think. So this was the rear elevation of Love Culture. That was how, and this is landlord work. In this case, we actually have the tenant doing the work, and we're reimbursing them, but there's just some more details of how that rear elevation is coming along, and the return, and a couple of close-ups. So basically the idea is to carry this same theme across. This section right here, I just brought the old Love Culture rendering, basically, to kind of this. So again, this is the 15 feet of the rear elevation, and again, it's not part of the. It's not a front to back store, because we have the little exit corridor and the ladder. But essentially, we're carrying the same vocabulary as what we did here with this steel trowel stucco. It would be the same color as stucco. This is a green canvas awning with open ends and the spear wrought iron supports, and we're actually carrying the same, although it's not delineated exactly, but over on guest services, we've got the green awning, so we're actually carrying that same color and theme down there, the continuity. Again, here's that little rear exit area. So we think that as far as the Spanish vernacular on this parking lot elevation, we think it's working out pretty well. It works well with guest services and Yves de Lorme, and so this will be a continuation. Right here, this actually returns back. This stucco returns a little bit, so that's a good termination point for this phase. This is actually stepped out. That's why I took a picture. This is bumped out a bit, so this stucco on this portion of the facade would just be applied, there'd be a diamond lath shot to it with scratch brown and finished stucco. And so
this goes in, you say? This
not
goes in,
much.
or this comes out?
This is actually out just a few inches, I believe. Yeah, I know that's not the best photo, but this is a little stucco, and it's just slightly recessed, so it'll be a good place to kind of return that stucco and in that stucco.
Mm-hmm. And what happens in this transition as this parapet goes around the corner, and then this profile and this profile is two different profiles? What happens at that turn?
Actually, we don't have that situation here. We had it here. We have it here, and this does return back a long way, but this is all the same plane. So let me turn this on. So we don't have any return one way or the other. That's a continuation.
So this here is the same as here?
Yes.
This will come across, the same detail will come across?
The same detail, yeah.
Oh, I see. So it's not what you're seeing here then, because why is that line there?
Well, you're actually...
If that's in the
actually,
same
you're
plane
right.
as
That line, correct, actually. You're right. You're right. This line and those lines won't be there, but that one will still be there because it'll be a return.
So what you're actually doing is you're taking this plane and this one will be in the same plane.
Yeah, I think it will be. It will be close.
This and this will be close in the same plane.
And this bumps out just a little bit.
Yeah, I think this should be in the same plan. Yeah, this was the diamond lath. In other parts, this whole thing was furred out, but this section was, I think, just the lath and plaster over that.
Okay, let's move on and let's go to the air conditioning. I think we'll have some questions.
Okay.
I know I have a few questions to ask. Let's move on to finish the presentation, then we let everyone ask their questions.
So the air conditioning unit we plan to propose is, like I said, it's a smaller, more energy efficient unit than the one that's currently there. And it is actually, height-wise, I believe it is 8 inches shorter than the one that is currently there. And we'll turn around here. Storefront section. Trying to find the right page here.
These are all interiors.
You have an overall building section, schematics.
I do have I think it's on A3. So that's A1B shows where the
roof plan.
Roof plan where it shows where it sits. And let's see. F2 M1. Let's see if I should have an elevation here for you.
That was an elevation you added, right? Or that the architect added it on.
Right.
Demolition plan.
It's on it.
It's on this.
Storefront.
It doesn't have a roof plan. Doesn't look like it has a roof plan.
I do have the photographs.
Do you have a photograph that shows the whole run of this long thing, or going in this direction? So now we could see how far this is from the front, etc. Sorry.
On M1, they locate the roof, right? I mean the units.
Right.
Mechanical plan.
So it's almost midpoint.
Okay. All right.
And it's a ways back there. It's definitely
okay.
So that looks okay.
So the unit is gonna. This unit is gonna go. That's the unit.
Yes.
And then you have a unit that's. Do you have a cut sheet or something that shows us what the height of this is?
You do not have a cut sheet. They did not provide me with one.
Okay, you'll have to
It will be.
submit that.
It is a smaller unit.
Okay.
I do know that for sure.
Okay.
But I was not given the cut sheet on that.
Okay, so you'll have to submit a cut sheet of the air conditioning unit and
Okay.
show us what the height is above the. Would be good. Okay. I think this is enough to show us where it is located from here to here. But if you could show what that cut sheet is, so we could see how high that unit is.
Air device.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to bring back to for questions. Seeing no one in the audience, staff.
Yes, we do have a letter from Miss Paula Westbury.
Okay, thanks. Chris, questions?
The only question I really have is, it sounds like you're changing the facade. You mentioned sort of losing that.
Yeah, we're going to lose the canopy. And that's going to be...
Throughout the plaza?
Well, on that building right now, yeah.
So basically, we're at the end of the day, once they all change over, it's going to be a big sort of mishmash of different things without that unifying element above.
I don't know if I'd say mismatch. I mean, the whole idea is to kind of make it, kind of tie it better together better.
Okay.
Actually, if you get to the end, there's wet seal at the end, and there's a tower element. And the idea, once wet seal, for at least the time to renew, we're going to remove the canopy just to that tower, and then we'll do a more of a Yves Saint Laurent guest services type tower to tie that in. But the canopy portion between the tower and between Love Culture will be gone.
Okay.
That section.
Okay, that's my only question.
Okay, Paul?
I'm still not quite 100% following. So at this point, you're only removing the canopy up to the GNC portion, and all of these canopies are to remain?
Right, because this one, and that's why they've...
But that's just a future sort of an idea.
Yeah, because I don't know if you're familiar with that facade. It sticks out quite a bit, so we've got to...
That's it here, right? That's it here.
Yeah, there it is. So we've got to kind of incorporate that.
Okay. Another question. You're not giving them any more lease area. This line where the glass is not moving forward at all?
No, that's in the same location.
That's in the same location. Yeah. Okay, and the door is in the same location too? So this is going to read as a canopy that's kind of in front, or cantilevered.
It's different now, though. I mean, it's
a different, but the door in this rectangle is in the same plane that this is in. And then this tile here is actually right here, and this glass window is in the same location.
Yeah, there's a demolition plan that shows the removal of the materials and stuff, but I think, go ahead. I think it's that right. Is it? Oh, I saw it. Goes back to the next sheet, I think. There we go. I think that's it. Yeah. So this is being remove existing storefront trim, and all this is being removed. But the basic footprint is similar.
Okay. And then on the back elevation, there was a photograph that showed the corner building in the rear has already been revamped.
Right, and that's this.
No, there's this building, and then there was that kind of that photograph.
Yeah, this one. Okay.
Is next, and then is this been?
Oh, I didn't bring a photo. I should have brought a photo. No, that corner hasn't, but right across is guest services.
So, because according to that white drawing that you had, the one that's rolled up.
This one.
That one. Unroll that. That shows this corner building white, but this has not been done yet?
It's just not delineated, no. It hasn't been done yet.
That hasn't been done yet.
Right.
So what we're doing is we're extending this white up to this point,
right,
and then we're stopping?
For now, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this has not been done?
Hasn't been done yet.
But
we have ideas, we have preliminaries for it.
Have we given a permit for it?
No.
Okay. No. Cool. I think those are my two questions.
Okay. Okay, comments? Well, no. I have some questions. I guess my one thing is since this is a future proposal, and this will remain for now, right? See, this will remain. This will remain up to here,
right?
Right for now.
Mm-hmm.
What is the alignment of that fascia in the back here as it relates to this one?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, actually, it's not an ideal situation, and I think we've all. I don't know if you've walked the center. There's a couple of locations where we have that existing. It's basically at Love Culture, we have it right now, in fact, right
But
here.
he returns
And
down
it
clean. So
it returns back, and it's stuccoed, So we're going to do the exact same thing.
and we've always asked him to stucco, I mean, for his wall to continue beyond this fascia by a couple of feet.
Yeah.
We don't want him to just end. He just needs to go back a bit, right?
Right, and that's exactly what we just did at.
So, okay,
Love
then,
Culture.
so this one here is not too bad because this architecture is all flat. But what happens between this one and this existing one? That's the thing I'd like to know. Where is that plane? What's the difference?
It's similar, right here, actually. It actually, if you recall, it goes like this. Sorry. This is a Love Culture right now. It goes like this and this, actually. This is a little diagrammatic. The front of this building, and then I think it does something like that. And,
Okay.
So actually it angles back, and then this canopy right now for GNC sticks out like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is that condition that you're talking about, looking that way, right? And so what they've done is they've got the canopy kind of cross-section like that, and then it continues back, and then the Love Culture
comes across at
Right.
this angle into this thing.
Right. So this is our condition that none of us are in love with, but that's kind of an intermediate, it's what Love Culture, we've got this stuccoed, and this is stuccoed, and it continues.
So where would this wall here in this line, where would that wall be in this line?
This wall in this line would be here. This is a new parapet location.
Oh.
So the new wall would step out
So
here.
the
So
thing
this
is,
the remaining.
so this wall here would be flat, going all the way up to his parapet, and then he will start here with a cut at the side and have
That's
a
what's
cobbled parapet.
This is what's there now with Love Culture because GNC hasn't started yet.
Mhm.
This condition, and then this condition will have here too, the exact same situation that we have right now at Love Culture. If I'm making myself
That
clear.
back wall is there, and then this is the existing.
Right.
Right. This is the one that will be cut right at that point for the
Yeah.
GNC. It was cut at this point for Love
Right.
Culture.
So what I'm saying is once you plaster this now in line with that one,
Mm-hmm.
you will have a protruding corbel that's like that. Because right now this corbel here is either here or in front, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say this corbel is here, right?
Mhm.
And that's the face of this below.
Mm-hmm.
Then are we turning this corbel to come back around, or are we just cutting this like that at the end? And what happens right here? Are we just cutting that corbel at the end, or
It is
how is
cut-
that going to be treated?
Well, it is cut right now. I see what you're. Oh, the future corbel. You mean? I think what we'll do is we'll return it back like that, 45. So it'll actually, return.
Mhm.
It'll return back.
Which might look funny because he's going to come at an angle like this. He's going to look funny.
But this is more of a stepped. It's not a shaped.
Unless he turns this way here. Like that.
Yeah, I mean it is up high. You could turn into
Right?
it that way.
He will
Yeah.
have to turn in front of these guys' thing.
I thought he would just actually turn back in to the parapet itself.
Well, if they're in the same plane, he has nowhere to turn into unless he's into his own face. And then that's going to look funny. If this, you see this little
Yeah.
thing that you have here,
Mhm.
which means that there's another line right here somewhere where
Yeah.
it flattens out.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a line right here, right,
Mm-hmm.
that's that little flat thing, then what happens if these two are in the same plane, this will just be a hairline where it's a joint.
Right.
And then what I'm thinking, because this is flat, maybe his corbel can come across and do his 45 on front of this.
Okay.
Because if he does a 45 right here, it looks funny.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so he could return. So basically, it's going to be something like
You're talking right in here?
like
Yeah.
that, kind of, right?
That corner in there?
Yeah, right in here, right, this joint right here. It's just that this is the way that these things are being worked together. This little 15-foot section, and especially at the rail. I think it could be very problematic that you end up really with a a real
This joint.
a group of details that really look bad, you know, and they're not resolved. And the bigger spaces, when we rent them, when you do deal with the whole parapet, it works out pretty well. But when you start to add these little pieces to it, it becomes very disorganized.
Well, here you've got the two, you've got contemporary, modern love culture, and you've got the more vernacular Spanish. So from this point on, it's going to be more of the vernacular Spanish, and this will be joined, so that this will be all one plane. So basically you have this section stopping here. So you shouldn't have this condition
so
here.
what you're
here,
saying
here.
is between here and the next big one, you're going to do more of a consistent parapet across the top.
Right.
And the design will all be the same.
Yeah, and that's kind of why we've...
Okay, so I think what you need to do, the others may say something, but I think what you need to do is you need to show this, the anchor here, and the anchor here, and then show your proposal for the parapet that goes across.
Okay.
Right? And you need to show that so that we can see that this is going to be part of an overall plan between the two anchors, even though you're just doing that piece.
Okay, but the thing is, we're not going to be developing this as far as detailing it.
And it could be a long time of months down the line kind of thing, you mean?
Yeah.
So it may be more problematic than we...
Well, it's just that we're not going to quite get there. Oh, maybe I didn't print that.
Because even on the rear, I could see it working on the rear where you go between the two anchors.
This is small.
Yeah.
But again, so this is going to continue all the way through. So but since it's not part of this middle, I didn't want to get, all this detail going. But this is the direction we're going. This is what we're...
But it may or may not happen? Oh.
No, it'll happen.
As one tenant comes out, new tenant comes in.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'll be continued on.
It'll happen, but these will be consistent with, this section here. Love Culture was adamant about their branding with their,
Okay. Well, all right. That's my concerns and that's my question. I'm going to get everybody's comments and then we'll come back with our comments, which will give you where we want to go with it.
Okay.
And I think I know what's happening on the rail for what you showed me. And okay, so that's questions. So we're going on to comments. Chris?
Okay. I don't really have any additional comments. I just think that it's a good point you brought up, and I think this transition from the real contemporary and modern love culture to these more, Spanish, this transition is going to be really important. So if we can see so we know what's happening with that parapet and that detail we're going to need to see up close, I think.
Okay. Paul?
Just to follow up on kind of where Chris was going, where you had kind of a to-be-designed anchor here. You have Love Culture, and this is the scheme that you have. We're only doing this 15 feet, and this section will come later. It'd be good to have that on the drawing showing that that's the direction this section is going for. And then under comments, when Outfitters comes, we probably would want the rest of the parapet to be all done at once. And because as soon as you have 2/3 of this distance, you might as well just do the whole distance. Because otherwise this is going to look really odd when the anchor gets done, this guy gets done, and he's hanging in the middle. But for now, having these 2/3 and this 1/3 is something that can work with. The same would happen in the back, where you're just going to extend the white plaster for 15 more feet. But eventually you're going to have a point where you just might as well plaster the remaining of it instead of just going tenant space by tenant space.
Okay.
Architecturally, I find something wrong or inaccurate. It seems like this window line is slightly in front of this bearing wall line, and from what I can tell in these photographs, it appears that this window is in front of this plane.
Yeah.
So if this plane is the one that goes jet straight up, this element could be 8 inches in front of it if these are two 4-inch tiles. So if we go to the sections, the sections aren't drawn correctly. This is a flat plane right here. And if you look at the elevations, it seems like there should be an 8-inch bump right here. If you go back one sheet this way.
Yeah. It should bump in.
Right here, there should be a bump. If this is the window line here, and if these two tiles is, I don't know, 8 inches in front of this lease line, this would continue up and be one plane and then go back to that lease line. Then this element is in front of and in front of this. So in that other section is semi-correct. It shows a bigger bump there, but something is incorrect on that one.
Let me look at their floor plan real quick and make sure that I didn't.
Something is funny here, because this really has a bump there. You could see that this thing goes back, and that was in the plane with the sidewall.
This is where the post is, so it bumps out right there.
Well, that's just something that I noticed that's inconsistent. The elevation, the way it's drawn right now, this isn't going to be very pretty looking if these two are on the same plane.
Yeah, you're right. The section, I think the section is not drawn quite right, because this whole thing should be bumped out 8 inches then.
Right.
Is what unless
you're filling it up here.
Unless this right here is a bump and it's just not reflected in the section. Let's see. That section.
You don't have to solve it now. It's a question that I noticed that something's not correct.
Okay.
But I think looking at the wall where this gray plane is going straight up, these guys are in front of it. And it's important to have a layering effect. The layering is what makes the architecture have interest.
Yeah.
And if it's flat, and with just little cheesy FRPs thrown on it, GFRCs, it's not going to have the same kind of interest. So that's my comment, that the elevation needs something tweaking.
So I think that's maybe they just draw that correct, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I think so. I think it was just not drawn correctly, because it does actually have a layered effect, is what they were trying to go for.
Mr. Chair, I'm struggling with this project because there doesn't seem like there's enough information. I mean, there's a lot of drawings here, right? For what we're looking for the aesthetics portion of this. The section's not correct. The elevation probably could use some descriptive, what's in, what's out, how's the facade actually working.
Right.
I think the design, to just talk about the design for a minute, it's very kind of generic to me. The design, I think it's lacking, and it might just be the issues like Paul's talking about, where the layering effect and the fact that it's hard to really tell what's going on in the elevation. But I think it'd be good to see what's happening with the new building next door, and have a little elevation of all those pieces so we can see it and draw it accurately.
Yeah.
Because and update the sections, and I think it needs to be studied a little bit more.
Yeah. Thanks, Clay. And I agree with Clay. I think the key thing is that there's not enough information on this, and I think that to some extent a little bit on the exterior elevation. I think you have most of it already on the exterior, but that's pretty simple. And this one here is really, you need almost like a section through there that shows how this bumps out, steps back, and then how it meets this plane, and how it does it here. And when your section goes through there, it needs to accurately tell where that planes are. And then it would be good, like if you had a section there looking this way, to see how it starts to meet this other parapet that's there, so that we understand how all these connections work. This one here and this one here. We need to understand how those connections work. And then this drawing and this drawing, I'm not sure what this all is. If this is going to be that
is that. Yeah.
Then this is what you're proposing to go all the way across,
right?
Which is really, this is a more modern cornice that's going all the way across. Then we need to know if that is what it is, as opposed to this.
Yeah,
because this looks more rounded and everything.
Well, the computer drawings don't. I mean, it's really going to be more along.
But that's what we need to know.
This one, yeah.
That's what we need to know.
It's going to be more along the lines of the.
And we need to have it drawn so we could actually see it. So we're missing some information for us to give you the right kind of feedback, something definitive. We just don't have it.
So, okay, something more of a... Okay, just some sections through here, and maybe a little... These details, I guess, need to be softened to show the true, you know,
Surrounding
proposal
more
versus-
Spanish style.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It just doesn't appear to be when they do the section.
CAD drawing.
Well, in one sense, you know, we can't even talk about whether it's Spanish or not Spanish or modern because we just don't have the information to do it. So it's not like we're sending you in a direction to go from here to into Spanish or whatever. We just don't have the information.
Right.
We need to know exactly what your drawing is all about and how it meets and everything.
Okay.
And so it's really a documentation issue more than anything for us to be able to give you the...
Yeah, see, I mean, they've got it called out, edges shall be bull-nosed, not exceed 1.5 inches reveals. So in other words, they've exaggerated it in the drawings.
Yeah.
That, you know.
And then you'll come back with a large
It's
scale
actually
to
more
show us exactly what's happening.
That, more
Yeah.
like that. You know what I mean? So they've got to round these.
Okay.
And that shouldn't be
Okay.
shown so big.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, you can. It's time for us to.
I'm going to make a motion for indefinite continuance back to the full board with the following comments. Applicant to return with updated plans and sections that correctly lay out the building. Item 2, in your section, provide the existing canopy or eave in the section as being demoed so we can see the vertical relationship to what you're actually proposing. Provide information and details on how the parapet top will return. And I'd like, personally, I think it'd be good to see on the elevation some way of denoting how it's moving in and out. So if there's a 0 point and then this is 3 inches back and this is 6 inches back or this is 4 inches forward, some way of being able to do that. And this is an item, I'm not going to put this in the motion, but I think that the applicant, I think you should return with some sort of a rendering of this thing, like something with shadow. I think it'd help you, it would help us understand what you're doing, but it would help you kind of show us what your design intent is. The last item was provide elevations of the adjacent storefronts so we can see the context of the proposal. Is there anything about the mechanical unit?
I would like to see a cut sheet of the mechanical unit, and if you could do a line roof section.
Sure.
So, I mean, you're going from one end of the building to the other, so you could see how high the parapets go up on each side, and then where the unit is and where the side is that unit is.
So, Kathy, provide a cut sheet for the mechanical unit. Next item, provide a section, longitudinal section through the building so we can see the parapet height and the mechanical units. And then provide a rear elevation for the scope of work being presented.
Thanks. Thanks, Craig. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
For under discussion, just to let you know that what Clay asked for in the elevations, I think on this one you should show us right to the end of that block of buildings, from one anchor to the other anchor.
Okay.
So that we can see how this proposal
and
is
it's
going to
be. It'll just be conceptual on that because obviously it's only at the conceptual stage.
Okay. Well, you'll have to show us as best as you can so that we can make a decision. Just because it's hard for us to.
Yeah, the front between wet seal and
Yeah, because if he's proposing this parapet, that's whatever parapet he's putting there. They're proposing that parapet will go all the way across to the next anchor.
You actually can show it twice if you wanted to. Once is the existing this situation, which is wet seal and all these the way they are, this and love culture, and then the direction they're going to go, which is a dotted line, to be determined wet seal, and then this look, and then love culture. So we can see this is what we're going to have for X number of years, and this is the direction they're going.
Okay.
Does that sound reasonable?
But in with that, every store is different, and they all have their own branding look. I understand about the parapet, and that would definitely be something that would be continuous to hide the rooftop unit and so forth. But as far as the storefront,
Well, that's why this the wet seal is dotted in, and it's just like, we have no idea what this is going to look like. It hasn't been designed yet. And then these two are not going to be showcase places, but it's going to continue this look. That
line up there.
That line is what the intent is, but we're only going to approve this version, and all of this is existing to remain.
Can this then be shown similar to what it is now? Really, I mean, on the sketch.
Yeah, show what's there.
Okay, because
Don't try to design something for a tenant that you have no idea what they're going to do.
So so this basically this conceptual sketch will suffice in on this elevation to continue that. Okay.
But it would be good to show how this is going to be a dotted rectangle anchor, which is going to be different than this. It's not going to be the same line. You just commented how you were going to do some kind of tower kind of thing, but it's going to be something here, this guy in the middle, and then something here.
Okay.
Okay, and then on the rear elevations, it sounds like that you all basically okay with.
I think you have to show us the details of the rear elevation again.
Okay, so include it in this set of plans.
Yes,
it needs to be in the set of plans.
It needs to be in the set.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against, motion carries. Thanks very much, gentlemen. And with that concludes the ABR for this evening, July 26, 2010. Good night, Santa Barbara.
okay, are you guys okay with the colors and the stonework that we